What's up guys, welcome back. This is anime crossover. You'll be watching What If Naruto Was the Emperor of Elements, in the Avatar The End. Now, let's begin. 120 years following the genocide of the air nomads. Spirit Realm. Valley of Two Worlds. This Kai is quite bothersome, Pavor, the spirit of fear, remarked with a growl. He was not prepared to receive a significant influx of life energy from me. He cannot continue to exist, or humanity will regain its strength. It was evident that throughout his extensive life, he had faced numerous challenges from earthbending practitioners. One may choose to withdraw, yet challenging oneself against genuine and astute adversaries presents a different narrative. As he continued to speak, I strategized my forthcoming action. 3 ancient, astute spirits have been present here, traversing this world since the era of Wan Shi Tong. I possessed a strong sense of confidence in my abilities. 5 bending arts, each refined to an ancient standard, represented a significant advantage. Life energy was undeniably significant. In our brief interaction, it became evident that Pavor's gaseous form exhibited a heightened sensitivity to it. Next month, troops are scheduled to arrive, so I must ensure these formidable spirits are dispelled without fail. Our world urgently requires life energy crystals. Their extraction will greatly enhance humanity's overall strength. If Agni were present, we would manage this situation with ease. His firebending is truly exceptional. The fire of Ryujin Jaka, from a character I am familiar with in the Bleach universe, is significantly less impressive. Agni possesses a distinctive capability that allows him to absorb enemy energy and ambient particles, resulting in increased strength and temperature. In the face of Pavor's 2 companions, an experienced waterbender and a unique combination of metal and earthbending, his flames would prove to be the most advantageous. I experienced the simultaneous absorption of 2 energies, allowing me to set distractions aside. I carefully examined for any apparent vulnerabilities. In an instant, my form shifted into a bolt of lightning, materializing directly before the notably loquacious Pavor. A millisecond later, a substantial beam of life energy emanated from my chest. A green mist enveloped his body, and his piercing screams suggested he was experiencing significant pain. An enormous, unidentified earthbending spirit manifested beside me. His substantial, evidently weighty metallic fist was positioned to strike when I utilized an ability I had acquired from mastering the ancient level of earthbending. His fist was drawn back with surprising lightness, forcefully impacting his own body. A profitable energy expenditure, I thought to myself, as I sensed the surrounding earth particles merging with my source. My distinctive capability was the manipulation of gravity, known as gravikinesis. Certainly, there remains a significant amount to explore, yet its potential is truly remarkable. It overlooks the safeguarding presence that envelops each spirit. Should an object be present, it is subject to being either pulled or pushed. After deflecting his fist, I harnessed the surrounding earth energy particles. I am interested in acquiring the knowledge to create space-time distortions similar to black holes, although it seems improbable in the near future. The techniques I have acquired thus far are sufficient, significantly enhancing my capabilities. The most commonly utilized abilities encompass telekinesis, levitation, object compression, weight manipulation, anti-gravity, zero gravity, and the establishment of a gravitational barrier. While they are not yet instinctive, I am diligently striving to incorporate them into my fighting style. I am currently implementing this. Wan Shi Tong's setup is no longer beneficial to me. I have surpassed it. Ultimately, his formation fails to express even a fraction of the true power of an ancient spirit, a realization I had not come to before, given my relative limitations as a mere superior. My comprehension of the fundamental 4 bending arts has significantly advanced, or, more accurately, become more straightforward. I have come to understand that it is unnecessary to complicate straightforward matters. Consider, for instance, fundamental earthbending techniques, lift-push and lift-pull. The concept revolves around fundamental gravity manipulation, indicating that I possess basic control. I simply need to refine and enhance this ability. Unpleasant, I thought to myself as I lost my hold on the earthbending spirit's other limb, resulting in my body being thrown through the air and depleting a significant amount of my waterbending energy in the process. As I worked on regaining my form, I attempted to close the distance, achieving varying degrees of success. The overlooked waterbender provided no opportunity, relentlessly chasing my swift form with a barrage of spears, arrows, and various sharp, icy projectiles. It was time to employ another skill I had acquired after becoming part of the esteemed lineage of ancient airbenders. One aspect of my thoughts outlined my direction, another closely monitored the actions of the spirits, while the final one collected the essential air particles. Air Chaos Zone, I exclaimed, perhaps with a touch of flair. I will be turning 38 this year, and I find myself in this situation still. A significant quantity of air particles exhibited erratic behavior, moving chaotically and repelling other elemental particles, thereby obstructing the application of bending in our vicinity. I am currently unable to utilize other elements, however, none of my adversaries possess airbending or life energy capabilities. The circumstances are clearly advantageous for me, with Pavor being the only significant threat remaining. He truly requires consumption, intoned the waterbender, his expression becoming increasingly somber. I encourage you to give it a try, I replied, before launching myself toward the earthbending spirit. His substantial physique appeared to be the least robust among the three. The substantial, radiant green armor that enveloped me mitigated the full force of the collision on my body. Extending my limbs to their fullest reach, I encircled his body, persistently propelling us onward. The spirit's companions did not hold back either. Their area attacks created challenges for both of us. An exceptionally precise icicle succeeded in severing my right arm. However, it was too late. Our bodies were already in freefall, descending directly towards the valley's bottom. The spirit's power commenced a swift decline, evident in the fragments of rock detaching from its form. A loud crash resonated shortly thereafter. We had arrived at the bottom. I successfully landed smoothly, thanks to the favorable conditions. At that moment, he presented a rather unfortunate appearance. After losing nearly 70% of his mass, only a metallic glint, his true form, remained. The first one has been eliminated. The metalhead was significantly weakened, and even an ancient spirit would find it challenging amidst the multitude of life energy crystals present here. I was unable to utilize bending in this location as well, therefore, 70% of my life energy dissipated, yet in my remaining hand materialized a formidable green hammer, which I forcefully struck against the spirit's form. 2. The second strike was notably more impactful, significantly altering the shape of his body. 3. The spirit became increasingly flattened. It was only after the 22nd strike that he ultimately succumbed. His earthbending energy proved to be highly beneficial, greatly enhancing my foundation. I anticipated they would not make an effort to rescue him. I reflected as the spirits maintained their intense gaze upon me, showing no inclination to approach. I came to realize the reason. Here, their abilities would be rendered ineffective. I collected several crystals from the wall to replenish my reserves. Bending my knees, I propelled myself upward, my body ascending with remarkable force. A substantial dark cloud loomed at the exit, compelling me to expend a significant amount of life energy. It appears they are indeed strategizing, a thought crossed my mind. Typically, ancient dark spirits exhibit a high level of caution, and the demise of one would trigger significant concern and a strategic withdrawal. They displayed a level of confidence that bordered on arrogance in this setting. A minute later, a sense of unease developed as a chilling aura radiated from the waterbender. I was completely immobilized by an unseen force, unable to move even an eye. Did this waterbender truly freeze space and time? Even if the ability's range was limited, the possession of such a formidable skill was certainly a source of envy. It appears that the freezing effect is selective. Pavor began to envelop my body with his mist, which rapidly diminished my aura. This situation is perilous. My resources were quickly depleted, leading to the mist eroding my skin and revealing tendons and muscles. I attempted to divide it into multiple sections, but was unsuccessful. Attempted to embody lightning or fluidity, failed as well. Will I meet my end in such a disgraceful manner? Determined to persevere, I shielded my head with the last of my vitality. I have not conducted any tests on it, and likely will not in the future, but I find it essential to rely on my intellect. The remainder of my physique rapidly deteriorated under his potent energy, ultimately exposing my greenish bones. 1, 2, 3. As soon as he made contact with my bones, a swift response ensued. The life energy crystals embedded in my bones fulfilled their purpose, inflicting significant damage to the spirit. The explosion was visually striking. It compromised the waterbender's capacity to freeze effectively. I promptly absorbed the dispersed life energy, rejuvenating my body to its typical appealing state. 3 figures materialized beside me, only to disappear once more. The era of self-sufficiency has come to an end. Previously, I felt stronger than those around me and operated independently, but now, greetings, my dear. Hello, my husband. How are you managing, my love? By my side were those I could rely on completely. Anya promptly assumed her authentic form as a grand golden dragon. Drea prepared her vampiric plants. Gaia, having recently ascended to the status of an ancient spirit, was already employing her distinctive ability, emitting weakening pheromones in her vicinity. Individually, they posed minimal risk, however, their combined impact represented the real danger. As the duration of the conflict extends, the adversary's strength diminishes. They will certainly become weaker. A defense against the pheromones has not yet been identified. The diligent efforts of the two nature spirits resulted in a significant transformation of the area into a perilous forest, abundant with sharp-toothed, acid-spitting plants. As a result of diminished spiritual energy, I primarily assumed a supportive position. However, the girls required little assistance from me. Anya swiftly showcased the formidable legacy of her ancestors, instilling fear in both spirits and benders. Her life energy-infused claws efficiently dismantled Pavor's body. As the waterbender was methodically weakened, Drea's ever-present vines effectively immobilized the enemy, eliminating any opportunity for retreat. The entire situation concluded within a matter of minutes. The overwhelming presence of three spirits with exceptional abilities proved to be insurmountable for our adversaries. The waterbender's energy greatly augmented my own capabilities. It appears he has successfully managed to escape, I observed. Pavor's death had not emitted any energy, indicating that he had somehow departed unnoticed. One could hardly anticipate anything less from a spirit of such ancient and cunning nature, observed Guy, who had learned of this spirit's cleverness from her elders. Dear, Drea said with a hint of caution, could you please explain why you did not contact us immediately? Anya expressed her interest by stating, I would also like to hear that. Their assault was so intense that I simply didn't have time. I began to explain with enthusiasm, only to realize that the ladies were not convinced at all. I acknowledge my mistake and will strive for improvement. Let us proceed home, as this environment is not conducive to a productive discussion. Tianhai City. Law Enforcement Headquarters. The Chief of Police occupied her office on the penultimate floor. No indications in the surroundings suggested that a woman, even a powerful one, governed this area. Every detail conveyed a sense of discipline, both for herself and for those in her vicinity. Even experienced officers preferred not to remain in this area for extended periods, while junior officers promptly assumed a position of attention. It was more intense when her penetrating gaze appeared to delve directly into your essence, as if probing for every imperfection. The consensus among the male staff was clear. Kuvira's character would have been more coherent had she been born male. Beyond her impressive physique, there was a lack of traditionally feminine qualities. While some may have observed her displaying shyness and charm in the presence of Senator Yo, such perceptions were not taken seriously by others. At that moment, the atmosphere was markedly distinct. Kuvira's eyes gleamed as she perused a magazine dedicated to women's fashion. A subtle flush enhanced her complexion, adding to her allure. Lingerie has evolved in a manner that some may find overly provocative, Kuvira contemplated, observing the delicate straps of the panties that offered minimal coverage, instead highlighting the model's elegant silhouette. Or have I simply not kept pace with current developments? The inquiry was not solely posed by Kuvira. New clothing designs emerged each season, impressing with their boldness, innovation, and occasionally, their eccentricity. The identity of the individual responsible would remain undisclosed. Only two beings of mixed heritage were aware of the grave secret: Celine and her father. The father presented his concepts to his daughter, who subsequently created and polished designs, forwarding them at no cost to fashion houses. The individual responsible for this swift evolution in clothing diversity was likely seeking to break free from the uniformity of local styles. Their spirit and gaze, naturally, sought transformation. When change is absent, take the initiative to create it with your energy. In recent years, Kuvira has redirected her attention towards personal development. She dedicated her leisure time to enhancing her appearance. She aimed to present herself as captivating to a specific individual. Her affection for her savior remained unwavering. She appeared unfazed by the fact that he was involved with multiple women. Instead, it inspired her further. There would be a place for her in his heart as well. It was unfortunate that he continued to perceive her in an entirely different manner. A similar sentiment emerged when he regarded his adult children. However, she remained determined. Her confidence waned somewhat upon encountering his associates in person. Each possessed beauty, intelligence, and a distinctive charm. Her muscular physique contrasted sharply with the elegance of Azula and the ethereal beauty of Gaia and Drea. She capitalized on her strengths. Her long-forgotten acrobatics training resurfaced, and her workouts evolved to be both functional and enhance her figure with alluring curves. The final step, Yo's heart, she frequently reminded herself. His associates had already provided her with the approval, she simply needed to pursue her own fulfillment. They would neither obstruct her nor assist. That was perfectly acceptable to her. It seemed as though the universe had favorably guided her journey. Over the past few years, the city has experienced a notable absence of serious crimes, with the majority of cases not being criminal in nature, allowing her ample opportunity to concentrate on her personal development. It is appropriate to acknowledge the senator, who, following the defeat of the Equalists, took decisive action to eliminate criminal elements through the use of Kai blocking and other sophisticated bending techniques. His team of 10 specialized individuals, each possessing enhanced abilities such as heightened olfactory senses, auditory perception, or visual acuity, had increased case closure rates by 67%. Kuvira checked the time and promptly made her preparations to depart. She realized she was on the verge of missing lunch with Yo. Despite the availability of a cafeteria at the headquarters, she chose to walk a few blocks to enjoy his company. The cafe where they convened nearly every workday was not her preferred choice. She had a particular aversion to the waitresses. Indeed, Auntie's Embrace was known for its unfavorable reputation among women. Municipal building. Senator's offices, top floor. In a large, well-lit room, the sounds of deep breathing resonated throughout the space. Adjacent to imposing cabinets filled with garments, Zhu Li Moon, known for her formidable presence among officials and as Senator Yo's trusted aide, stood with her posture confidently accentuated. Has my figure changed again? Zhu Li contemplated, as the black tights she just purchased struggled to fit properly. As she assessed her muscular thighs, she acknowledged that the Kai training had contributed to her weight gain. However, it was not merely fat, it was functional tissue that enabled her to jump higher, run longer, and recover more efficiently. Over time, compulsory self-defense training and a nutritious diet transformed her from a somewhat unremarkable girl into a genuine femme fatale. Even other women appreciated the captivating movement of her hips. It is important to observe that individuals generally appeared significantly more visually appealing. Certainly, this primarily pertained to individuals engaged in the study of Kai, which favored the refinement of imperfections. Through consistent daily practice, the skin improved in clarity and softness within a month, hair restored its luster, and eyes regained their vibrancy. It is no surprise that individuals of all ages engage in this routine. Schools faced significant challenges at the outset due to the influx of enthusiastic students. Even benders participated in the frenzy. Although they faced greater challenges, spiritual energy did not always harmonize effectively with Kai. Zhu Li exhaled, finally managing to fit into the tights. She swiftly fastened her white shirt and donned a miniskirt. The garment's brevity was striking, ensuring that any movement could reveal her vibrant purple undergarments. She exclusively dressed this way in her office and the adjacent one where the senator worked, with both spaces connected by a door. Throughout the remainder of the time, she maintained an appropriate wardrobe that aligned with her character. The underlying cause of these contrasts can be attributed to a singular, albeit intricate, emotion: love. She had experience with relationships. Her pragmatic approach focused on maximizing comfort for her body. She now owned a penthouse in a skyscraper, a new car, and stakes in several businesses. Everything a Tianhai resident could aspire to. However, with age came a deeper understanding. What value does a luxurious home hold if there is no one to welcome her there? What purpose does money serve if there is no one to invest it in? Upon self-analysis, she determined that her past continued to impact her decisions. Her family was not impoverished, yet categorizing them as middle class would be an exaggeration. Her mother held 2 positions to support their modest family. She consistently dressed in respectable attire, though not necessarily high-end, and meals were reliably provided, even if they did not always include meat or fish. The individual who deserted them, he would never fulfill the role of a father to her, left a significant impact on her character. That may explain her lack of interest in pursuing relationships with men. Equipped with psychology literature and scholarly articles, she commenced the process of examining her motivations and behaviors. Ultimately, the investment yielded positive results. If she comprehended accurately, it was essential for her to be more open-minded and to cease perceiving the world, particularly men, with animosity. Initially, she experienced a blend of disdain and critical assessment towards her direct supervisor, who conducts interviews in such an unrefined cafe. his confident glances at her lower half. Even with existing spouses and children, 4 individuals did not alter the reality that they possessed a singular consciousness. And somehow, he is the one I am drawn to, she sighed, examining herself in the mirror for imperfections. Zhu Li collected the documents she had organized the previous day and proceeded to her supervisor's office. "Good morning, Zhu Li," Yo greeted her with a warm smile, momentarily setting his book aside to acknowledge her presence. No sign of embarrassment was evident on her face, yet internally, she felt a flurry of butterflies stirring within her. "Good morning," she responded, setting a small stack of papers on his desk. "Should you require my assistance, I will be in my office," she added. Despite her desire to extend her stay, she had numerous responsibilities to attend to. As she walked away, she sensed his gaze following her legs. She adjusted her pace with intention, subtly emphasizing her movements to ensure her boss took notice of her presence. "I once assured myself that I would never conform to the typical image of a secretary." After 2 hours, she returned to Yo's office, having depleted her supply of stationery, which was typically stored in one of the cabinets. "That's too high," she remarked, attempting to access the top shelf. After a brief moment, Yo approached from behind, nearly leaning against her form. "Allow me to assist," he stated, positioning himself closely beside her. "Almost there," he murmured into her ear as she sensed a firm pressure lift the edges of her skirt, positioning itself between her legs shortly thereafter. "This is quite embarrassing," Zhu Li Moon thought to herself, experiencing a notable sense of arousal. The delicate material of her undergarments was already moist, poised to permeate her tights shortly. They had been engaging in these activities for some time. She would feign an inability to reach or accomplish a task, then he would come forward to offer assistance, intensifying the situation. Both individuals found these activities enjoyable, serving as an excellent means to unwind and step away from their regular work routine. "A bit more," Yo stated, gradually shifting his body forward and backward. His strong, large hands had long been positioned on her waist, occasionally moving lower to softly touch her legs and buttocks. She quietly acknowledged, leaning against the cabinet. Only it and its firmness prevented her from collapsing. Intense sensations rendered her legs unsteady. "This sensation is quite pleasurable," she contemplated, almost releasing another audible sigh. Uncertain of the soundproofing quality in the environment, she made an effort to remain quiet, inadvertently heightening Yo's enthusiasm. Zhu Li exhibited a heightened sensitivity to his touches. Before their initial game, she had never experienced anyone making contact with her intimate areas. They both understood that it was merely a question of time before their bodies united in bliss, potentially right in this office. However, for the moment, they wished to extend the enjoyment. "Purple today. One of my favorite colors," Yo said quietly, admiring his secretary's toned derriere and stimulating her with his erection. "Zhu Li seems ready," he thought as her legs tightened and he felt sweat on his pants. They stood like this for a few more minutes. Zhu Li recovered from her excitement, and Yo continued to tease her lower half. There's no purpose in him finishing. Why dirty his pants unnecessarily? He'd then play with her body till he was satisfied. "Thanks for your assistance," Zhu Li remarked, adjusting her glasses and attempting to appear nonchalant. Not very effectively. They remained in a compromising posture, with Yo's hands possessively caressing her curves. "A few more minutes," Yo said, stroking his fingers across her lips, removing any concerns. The southern region of the Earth Kingdom. Quarry. Nestled among a gorgeous environment of towering cliffs, tiered terraces, and weirdly formed rocks is one of the bases tasked with protecting the Earth from unexpected intruders. For years, a metallic stronghold stood on a flat plain, protecting a Kai-distorting fissure. In a small military dormitory, a man in his early 30s sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. His strong hands grasped a blade, its edge shining softly green. Occasionally, the blade appeared to breathe, filling with a lovely emerald glow. It appeared that the weapon and the man were two halves of the same whole. "You've grown stronger again, my friend," the man said, opening his eyes and running his fingers lightly over the blade. Conversations with one's sword were typical among those who dedicated their life to swordsmanship, as the blade became a true companion, if not a brother. In recent years, the popularity of numerous bladed weapons has increased. Thanks to his tutor, nearly every practitioner has obtained some type of killing equipment, most commonly a sword. Hasek joined the teacher's sword school after watching a duel during a competition. Even though his master had fallen to his opponent, Bei the Slasher's reputation spread like wildfire throughout the surrounding regions. Young Hasek had pushed himself to the limit to pass the tough selection process, with hundreds of other hopefuls fighting for admission to Bei's school. As far as he knew, the teacher was constantly looking for more durable materials. After years of research and hundreds of different materials, he discovered meteoritic iron, now known as spiritual iron. Another year passed before the first results were revealed. The dark color of the spiritual iron changed somewhat, and the blade developed dark green flecks. Experiments with other materials were promptly abandoned, and all attention was directed on spiritual iron. Further experimentation and constant Kai infusion resulted in the entire blade turning green. It is worth noting that the blade quickly gained tremendous cutting power and enhanced durability. The more the blade changed color, the more deadly it was. At one time, Bei began to feel his sword. He could feel his weapon's whereabouts from 15 to 20 meters away. It did not stop there. He opened up a hitherto unknown world of techniques by charging his sword with Kai. Within a 20-meter radius, he could use his thoughts to levitate his blade and strike opponents from a distance. A tremendous stroke of the sword generated an energy wave that caused significant damage. It wasn't long before the teacher started teaching them the first step, infusing the blade with their Kai. Only then did they comprehend what a truly heroic effort their instructor had made. Spiritual iron was extremely resistant to Kai, and at times it felt as if they were breaking the laws of the cosmos. To imitate his accomplishment, they had to confine themselves in their cells for months, and the school's unofficial slogan became, "Perseverance is the greatest virtue." The teacher refused to keep anything hidden. He immediately informed Earth Kingdom officials after recording his views. They, in turn, delivered his papers directly to the king's desk. Within a week, Avatar Roku came on the teacher's doorstep. Nobody knows what they talked about behind closed doors, but Bei strolled about with a big smile for a long time after. Later, it was revealed that the teacher had been given the title of landless aristocrat, and the school began to receive direct state financing. The previously unknown fencing school joyfully took the appellation, the Path of the Spiritual Sword. A month later, they got unusual Kai crystals. With these, infusing their swords became much easier, and their speed increased dramatically. Practitioners rapidly recognized the value of the spiritual sword, and after 6 months, there was not a single gram of spiritual iron left on the market. All reserves were in the hands of practitioners as piercing and slashing tools. A direct association was found between a practitioner's degree and the rate of infusion. The stronger and more proficient one was with Kai, the smoother their route became. Practitioner powers had long been classified into 7 levels. While the first level simply improved physical characteristics, the mythical 7th would bestow physical immortality. Needless to say, no one thought a human lifespan was sufficient to reach even the 6th level. The difficulty of training and the amount of Kai required grew tremendously. Over the years, just a few dozen people had advanced to the 3rd level, and they had virtually lived for their practice, putting everything else aside. Governments around the world passed a uniform legislation requiring practitioners to use their spiritual weapons only when their lives were directly threatened. The problem was that confrontations between practitioners, who preferred to settle disputes by infusing their spiritual blades, had become common, frequently injuring innocent bystanders. After all, the destructive potential of an average practitioner was only somewhat lower than that of an average bender. Not long after, practitioners wielding spiritual weapons to guard the rifts between worlds made a big influence. It became evident that spiritual weapons could easily kill spirits, often outperforming elemental attacks by benders. Of course, everything relied on how imbued your weapon was. If the weapon just flashed faintly green, you couldn't deal with spirits above average. Higher spirits would react to your attacks like mosquito bites. The scarcity of spiritual iron on the market became particularly acute. According to current research, just 15% of practitioners owned their own spiritual weapons, and half of those were only partially spiritual, with a thin layer of spiritual iron on top. Nobody knew about the Kai crystals previously. Shortly after, it was discovered that they were gained through perilous journeys into the spirit world, which was also where spiritual iron occasionally appeared. So it's no surprise that high-ranking officials began planning an excursion. Soon, words became action. Hasek enlisted because participants in the first trip were promised significant incentives. Not only would each practitioner earn money, but also a handful of Kai crystals. He, like the other practitioners on the mission, would be in the lead. Fortunately, the organizers were not fools. To join the voyage, one had to demonstrate their worth. With his senses, he saw hundreds of other practitioners, all of whom were at least at the second level. An uncomfortable signal before the mass assembly. Stepping out of the barracks, he was struck with the image of a buzzing anthill. People rushing around, double-checking and finishing plans. "Take them to another cargo truck. This one's already full to the brim," said a transport driver as a strange-looking vehicle approached him. Something resembling a 6-meter bipedal tank carried sealed wooden crates in its gigantic hands. The operator's face and torso could be seen through the glass. They gestured that everything was understood. "I can't get used to the eerie appearance of these robots," mumbled the freight driver. Many people echoed his sentiment. After all, only a couple of months had passed since the initial display of this technology at a presentation by Industries of the Future. Their usefulness was no longer in dispute. The public dubbed these robots loaders, since they were designed for the safe and efficient transportation of diverse objects. Perhaps they'd be utilized in warfare eventually, but for the time being, they were only defective prototypes with specifications that gave them no substantial advantage against benders or practitioners. Another 5 minutes elapsed until the camp went silent. A powerful force gathered in front of a small fissure, comprising benders, practitioners, healers, regular workers, and various forms of machinery. "Attention!" exclaimed the base commander. "Chief Naruto and Avatar Roku." Hasek cried in amazement as he noticed the famous figures emerge from the main building. He'd seen their command of Kais several times during the expedition's planning. Like many other practitioners, he had attended seminars where Roku and Naruto exhibited their powers. For years, he dreamed of a sword made of pure Kai. He couldn't even imagine having equivalent armor. It was far out of reach. But how did they reach such a level so quickly? He wondered, especially because the techniques they demonstrated were clearly not 4th level. They were at least 5th, if not entirely 6th. Everyone held their breath as Naruto and Roku clutched the edges of the rift, gradually extending it. It was evident how difficult it was for them, but centimeter by centimeter, the hole grew. The procedure accelerated as another pair of hands emerged from the other side. Someone couldn't be quiet and exhaled loudly. On the other side, Senator Yo and Van, Green Flame, appeared, both well-known characters. People began to comprehend who was putting crystals into the world. What is their true strength? Many pondered, knowing the great spirits who lived beyond the limit. Warriors and benders were not misled after the briefing. They were told unequivocally that only higher spirits could break through here. Ancients were a walking natural disaster, and no fortification could stand up to them. "Forward, forward, forward," the fortress commander exclaimed as the hole spread to the required size. The lengthy column started to move. The first rows of practitioners vanished from this world, only to resurface in the domain of spirits. Those who passed over quickly felt a shift. The amount of spiritual particles was off the charts. Without saying a word, the column divided in two. One proceeded forward and the other to the left. Those that headed left would pitch up camp near the spiritual iron deposit, while the first group would collect the Kai crystals. They made it to their destinations without incident. They simply didn't encounter a single spirit. The area had been cleared prior to their arrival. It took an entire day to construct temporary dwellings and set perimeter security. For a week, not a single spirit bothered them, but nobody relaxed. As future events would demonstrate, rightfully so. The first hostile spirits came at 3 p.m. on the 9th day of their stay in our realm. The weak, lesser spirits were dealt with quickly. Every few days, more people would arrive. The extraction of key elements had long been simplified. Along with that, spiritual activity increased. And, whereas in their previous world, they only encountered ghosts once or twice a month, here it was virtually every few days. The bender's strength increased like yeast. They didn't need to preserve Kai. Sit for 5 minutes and you're full again. The same could be true for the practitioners. Continuous battles and an abundance of Kai crystals accelerated their development dramatically. However, such quick growth resulted in a lack of sleep and overall mental weariness. After a month, they would be replaced by another group. People would rotate on a regular basis because constant battles and stress were detrimental to everyone. While they fought, the first cargo trucks carrying green crystals and tons of spiritual iron had already left for the human planet. The mission may be said to have already paid for itself, as no one had ever seen such a surplus of scarce resources. Everyone had one question. Why hasn't an ancient spirit attacked them yet? Such daring would undoubtedly have piqued the spirit's interest long ago. A few kilometers away, A human silhouette lay quietly on the ground, holding a book. Someone's remembering again, huh? Naruto said, stroking his nose, which desperately needed to be rubbed. So boring, he drawled, but he'd have to stay here for a while longer, at least until humans depleted the local crystal and ore deposits. Naruto functions as a filter, allowing humans to gain strength without facing powerful ancient spirits. Spirit Realm. Roku. Not far from two small settlements founded on deposits of life crystals and spiritual iron. For the past few minutes, just one thought had been running through my head. What the hell is this? If my eyes aren't misleading me and I'm still sane, ghosts are nearby. Love. They're frolicking. There's no other way to describe their appearance. Meter-tall anime hearts with goofy, thin limbs and legs playing a strange game of tag and occasionally hugging one another. Strangest of all, there were dark spirits among them, yet they exhibited no anger and were nearly indistinguishable from their light counterparts, with the exception that they embraced slightly closer. Is there a new form of spirit? I mumbled, having already made 2 attempts to recall any similar spirits from Wan Shitong's texts. It appeared that these hearts were a new and unstudied form of spirit. I couldn't pass up such an opportunity, so I approached my prospective research subjects with caution. Hi, I'm pleased to see you, too. When they spotted me, the spirits did not scatter but instead ran toward me, creating a positive and loving environment around them. Making bizarre kissing sounds, they began clutching my legs, and a visible pink kai spilled from their hands. I didn't concentrate on it. Inferior spirits couldn't penetrate my aura. After a few minutes, I concluded my exterior examination and was able to examine a little deeper into their energy bodies. Aside from their element, nothing exceptional was discovered. I believe the spirit of knowledge could provide significantly more interesting information about them. After releasing them unharmed, I returned to my small hut. For the first hour, nothing happened, and I was completely engrossed in a book until a heat crept throughout my body. My mind kept drifting to my girls' naked bodies, producing strain in my crotch. At first, I attributed it to a prolonged absence of Kai blockage, but when I rediscovered my passion, and after hours of intimacy with Ursa, I still didn't feel satisfied. It wasn't funny anymore. Attempting to affect my body with life energy merely mildly lowered the intensity but did not resolve the issue. Could they have done this? Only I was in contact with these fascinating new spirits, and everything is possible in the spirit realm. As I monitored my situation, I understood that the love spirits had somehow overcome all of my passive defenses, directly touching my Kai, which then impacted my body. These aren't love spirits at all, but true spirits of lust. If the situation had been under control, I would have blamed my negligence, but my state was far from control. My pants were about to rip from my erection, my thoughts were jumbled, and even an empty hole in a tree trunk seemed like a lovely vagina. I hadn't felt like this since I was a teenager, with an ocean of Kai. The worst aspect was that the effect overwhelmed all of my bodies. What if I merged the bodies? Theoretically, the combined strength of 2 streams of consciousness should counter the influence of the spirit's love energy. That was my last coherent thought before my body fused with Yo. Lemonade warning. You have been warned. City of Tianhai. City Hall. After Yo and Roku's bodies fused. Yo? Zhu Li inquired uncertainly as he abruptly entered her office. His gaze devoured her contours, sending chills down her spine. She felt like a tasty piece of meat before a hungry animal. Are you okay? She inquired, now concerned, noting Yo's cloudy glance, as if he were not himself. Before she could finish speaking, Yo was right in front of her, his hot, heavy breath searing her. Yo tore her blazer and shirt, displaying part of her pale peaks, held in place by a black, provocative corset. Oh! Before she could recover, Yo's hands grabbed her medium-sized breasts. Fortunately, it was evident that Yo was still holding in his might. Otherwise, Zhu Li's body would undoubtedly have red marks. This isn't how I imagined my first time. She couldn't help but accept and like it. The sensation of his tongue against her tight nipples elicited new, uncharted emotions. Yo's palms gently but firmly probed her upper assets, as if attempting to redirect her Kai. A minute later, her body was abruptly rotated, her nipples feeling the cold glass table. Her skirt suffered the same horrible fate, being torn in two. Only her skin-colored stockings remained as the final barrier. Almost immediately, her lower lips felt a passionate, wet kiss, and a section of her body began to swell considerably. She wasn't wearing panties today. Gentler, she hurriedly exclaimed, then added gently, recognizing her words were ineffective. Yo was plainly out of control. But her fear faded as she felt an incredible fullness, and it was only his tongue. What would it be like if he entered her with his member? I apologize, Yo managed to speak properly before passion took control again. It's okay. Zhu Li's voice was hoarse from crying and moaning. Zhu Li received bits from the scenes listed below. She vividly remembered landing on top of Yo, passionately bouncing on his manhood. It seems like her body had been taken in every position. For the past 5 minutes, the tireless Yo had been mercilessly beating her behind. She was prepared to acknowledge that her most sensitive place had had its fill for the day, but the strange sensation in her back channel was equally pleasurable. What's going on here? Kuvira's astonished cry stopped the sounds of moist skin smacking. She'd gone to the cafe with the flirting waitresses for lunch today, as she always did, but Yo was not there. She waited for him without fretting, knowing he would never pass up an opportunity to compliment the charming staff. After an hour, he still had not arrived. She marched resolutely toward City Hall, convinced that something urgent had occurred. Kuvira never anticipated that while she was worried about him, he was having fun with his secretary. Betrayal tears pierced her eyes. Fortunately or unfortunately, she didn't have time to reflect. Run. Zhu Li managed to murmur softly before Kuvira's world was turned upside down. Her body was lay beside Zhu Li, her slacks pulled down and her adorable white underwear tossed aside. Hold on, Zhu Li muttered, both of her areas visibly distended and pouring an endless stream of white, thick fluid. Huh? Kuvira blinked, still not understanding what was going on. Ah! This time, her cry was louder and more powerful. Until today, only her fingers had penetrated the police chief's virgin folds, so the presence of such a large, elongated object elicited the anticipated reaction. Yes. I have waited so long for this. Anyone else in Kuvira's position would have been upset, but this was obviously not the case. The cheerful, happy, no longer a virgin, began pushing her big hips. Her massive breasts, which she justifiably boasted about, were manipulated in every way, pulled to the sides, her huge nipples pinched. Zhu Li finally spoke up, saying, "Don't bother, he's not himself right now." Honestly, she had no idea how she had passed out. NHH. Kuvira gave a beautiful groan. I mean, her words became loud, persistent moans. Maybe she won't remember anything. Zhu Li realized what Kuvira was asking. She continued, not wanting to anger Kuvira. Even if she doesn't, do you believe Yo is the sort to avoid responsibility? Yo is not like that at all. Kuvira exclaimed with another moan. Then there's no need to worry. Just keep enjoying. I've had enough for the day. Simply enjoying was not an option. Despite the Kai, her folds and backside begged her to cease this sweet agony. Kuvira started working her mouth after listening to her body. And after she figured it out, she began to enjoy it. Fire Nation. Palace of the Fire Lord. Naruto's perspective. I was still a bit out of it, but things were starting to click for me. After about 30 minutes, I was back in control of my body. I kept moving in and out of Mei, feeling her warmth and wetness with each thrust. I noticed how she was doing, so I moved over to Tai Li and lay down next to her. Well, at least Tai Li's belly isn't as swollen. In front of me were the three fiery beauties. Azula, Mei, and Tai Li, relaxing with their legs spread wide. The white sheet underneath them was completely soaked with our fluids, and their bodies, many of which had my mark, were a sight to see. I can't believe I now know who comes in second place for danger after Vadu. It's wild to think that some weak lower spirits could pull this off against me. Is this what they call the great power of Kai? Things got messy with Kuvira and Zhu Li Moon. I should probably say sorry and let them know I'm excited to have them join the family. Luckily, my wives are cool with it. They like the girls' personalities. After about 7 minutes, I finally finished up, giving Azula's folds one last dose of my high-protein fluid. Just a heads up to remind Wan Shi Tong to steer clear of those spirits. I don't think my mind could take dealing with a lust-driven spirit of knowledge. Tinahai City. It's City Hall, so, the following day. Good morning. Have you heard about Roku? I'm sorry about that, I said, lowering my head a bit. Let's skip the formalities. Not after everything that went down between us, Zhu Li Moon said, waving her hand lazily, still feeling the exhaustion spreading through her body. Absolutely, everything's just perfect. Kuvira practically sang, her joy shining through as she held my right hand tightly. "Good," I said, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. The important thing was that the girls weren't upset. "But now, there's just no way you're getting out of this," my secretary said, wagging her finger at me, while Kuvira nodded along in agreement. "I never even considered backing out," I said with a grin. "Who would say no to two gorgeous people running into your arms?" When I got back home, some of the family was there, scared after hearing about what happened yesterday. A few hotheads were itching to get back at what they referred to as the evil spirits of love. I get where you're coming from. I wasn't too happy about it either, but honestly, it's probably for the best if they stick around so Van Shi Tong can dive into studying them. We might just discover some ways to guard against those odd attacks that slip past all our defenses. Luckily, everything went smoothly while I was away. None of the dangerous spirits went after the towns in the spirit realm. I need to focus on chi energy, I thought. Everything's looking good for humanity. No threats in sight, and we're making steady progress. My 3 bodies can take care of it all, even if one of them is hanging out in the spirit realm all the time. The Body Path Guru's records only touch on the 7th chakra in a pretty vague way. It feels like the author might not be completely confident in what they know. The Lion Turtle, on the other hand, shared some insights about the final chakra. So, if I'm getting this right, a regular earthbender needs about 100 years to unlock the thought chakra. That's like 1,200 months of almost constant self-improvement, plus some serious talent and skill. I don't think that's my thing. Fortunately, I discovered some shortcuts. "You know, I've always thought it would be amazing to visit space," I said, looking up at a distant star. "The sun's heat is going to speed up my growth like crazy." There were other options, like reaching Earth's core or asking Agni Kai for a roast. But, you know, preliminary experiments showed that neither would actually work. The maximum temperature of an Agni Kai is just over 4,500 degrees. I can handle it, but it's definitely pushing my limits. Not much is happening on that front. Chatting with the spirit of knowledge revealed the heart of it all. Its temperature hits 6,000 degrees, just a bit warmer than Agni Kai's. With a stack of books and a wise old owl by my side, I got ready for my adventure into space. So, Van Shi Tong figured out that the distance from our planet to the sun is about 150 million kilometers. You know, from what I remember in those educational videos about space, it seems like that's the same distance between Earth and the sun in my old world. So, the big question is, how do we get there? It's pretty obvious that water, earth, fire, and air platforms just aren't going to cut it. They don't give me the speed I'm looking for. Looks like local physics has finally revealed its limits, so zipping around like lightning is off the table too. "Could you please vacuum, sir?" Figuring this problem out required some deep thought, but we finally came up with a solution. "I'll find out soon enough if it works. Chi energy will help me get by without needing a spacesuit or any tech gadgets." Thanks to Van Shi Tong's runes, I was able to recreate some of the conditions of open space. The energy flowing inside me cancelled out the effects of the low atmospheric pressure. So, it turns out that simulating ultraviolet and X-ray radiation didn't pan out. I guess I'll just have to pick things up as I go along. It's nice to see that my gut feeling is on board with this crazy idea. It's launch day. I made it to 5 kilometers up in the air without any problems. The air here is so thin that I had to go into self-sustenance mode and just stop breathing altogether. It turns out that breaking the habit of inhaling and exhaling is way tougher than I ever imagined. So, I went through the ozone layer and started trying out my method for traveling in space. Roku's body wasn't just picked out of thin air. Over time, gravity bending uncovered all sorts of delightful surprises. "All right, let's do this," I said, concentrating on the gravitational force surrounding me. It was like something out of a sci-fi movie. I squished space in front of me and stretched it out behind, pushing a bubble with me inside it forward. It felt like that little burst took up around 20% of my earthbending energy reserves. So, when I looked back, beautiful. I spent a whole 30 minutes just soaking in the view of the planet, completely captivated by it. It wasn't until I pulled myself away that I noticed I had already left Earth's atmosphere behind. That little burst had spread over thousands of kilometers. I had just the right amount of time to soak up some serious solar radiation, and guess what? Unlike spiritual energy, it didn't bother me one bit. The sun's fire-bending energy started to scorch my skin, making my chi energy drain much quicker. I had a feeling this was going to be tough, I found myself surrounded by a whirlwind of fire particles, way more dangerous than anything you'd find on Earth. It took my source a lot longer to get the hang of things, and honestly, the whole process was pretty tough. Once I got the hang of bending gravity, I eased myself down a bit. I found myself curious about this illusory membrane that seems to wrap around the whole Earth, almost like a second ozone layer. As time went on, I started to get what it was all about. It's kind of like the ozone layer, but instead of shielding us from radiation, it helps protect the Earth from those unusually active fire particles. If we didn't have this membrane, life on Earth would be pretty rough. I get it. This environment can be tough to handle. As my body got used to the new conditions, I started turning my neutral energy into Earth particles. I just found out about this ability from my first source not too long ago. I've given converting energy types a shot before, but it just didn't pan out for me. So, it seems like there are some requirements to meet, like having an advanced mastery of all the elements. Neutral energy is flexible, so you won't lose anything in this process. When you're in a pinch, there are other ways to boost your energy, but they can be a bit trickier and more expensive. So, like, if you take firebending energy, you can turn it into neutral energy, but you'll end up losing about 20 to 30% of its mass. After that, you can transfer it to a water source without any loss. Unfortunately, this method doesn't do the trick for chi energy. Sometimes, it can be a bit scarce too. I spent a whole year getting to the sun, so here's how it went. I'd be on the move for a day, then just kind of hang out for 3, letting the chi energy get used to the new surroundings as fast as it could. We spent a few more hours turning one element into earthbending energy. It's tough here. There are just a few faint traces of those intensely burning and painful fire particles. My source is still getting the hang of them, but I can feel my firebending getting stronger, and the energy is definitely getting better too. You know, the sameness of the scenery and the total lack of noise could have gotten to me, but thankfully, my other selves were out there mingling with the world, which made all the difference. Real training kicked off at a distance of 3 million kilometers from the star. So, my beloved chi energy was having a tough time with the heat, and it made my skin start peeling off more often. It's hard to put into words how it feels. I figured it was worth putting up with for the sake of progress, I thought. What matters is that I'm reaching my goal. To unlock the 7th chakra, I've got to reshape my body a bit. Right now, my body feels like it's all connected, flowing with just one source of chi energy. While transforming, I need to whip up thousands, maybe even millions, of little sources. Every cell, every hair, and even every tiny particle of blood must have this little nuclear reactor that generates chi energy. That's when I'll finally achieve physical immortality. So, basically, all the details about my body will be noted in every source, which makes it super easy to bring it back to life later on. I've come across something like that in vampire series and games, where the oldest vampires can even regenerate from ashes. When you get up close, everything seems even more intense. The sun's surface, just by being there, produces so many particles that they could easily fill thousands of spirit realms. I slowly made my way closer to the surface of the fiery giant, pushing my chi energy to its limits. For the next couple of years, my body floated around the sun. My bones got stronger and stronger, changing from what they used to be into these cool green crystals. As I was busy cultivating, time just kept moving along. So, it turns out that a recent census shows there are about 2,000 airbenders around the globe now, but the majority of them are still just starting as students. That's some good news. Bit by bit, my body started to generate more chi energy sources. Every day we spent on the sun showed some solid progress. I let the energy do its thing while I concentrated on the thoughts of my other selves. So, 4 years after my first trip to the spiritual plane, I finally got a reliable source for spiritual iron and crystals. Every practitioner can feel confident that once they finish their basic training, they'll get their very own spiritual weapon. Feeling like I was on the verge of unlocking the 7th chakra, I started to go deeper. I focused all my attention on dealing with the outside world. As I went deeper, the temperature shot up to crazy levels. Definitely around 20 million degrees. I had already learned my lesson before, feeling the burn of the sun on my legs. At one point, I noticed I had come across a door that seemed to be standing between me and activating the 7th chakra. I ended up floating in space, just like in the show. Everything in this odd place felt like it was weighing me down. People were talking about the power I could have if I let go of my earthly ties. Why do you need relationships if you can't save the world? A voice kept echoing in my mind, almost like it was speaking to my very soul. The more I pushed back against their pressure, the more intense they got. But, I just can't bring myself to betray the people who are close to me. They inspire me to want to bring peace to the world. And that's when the pain hit. The pain felt like it was ripping me apart, pushing me to break down and then start over again. I could just give up on the 7th chakra and put an end to this struggle, but I decided to keep going. My family was the only thing that kept me going. They were there for me day and night, always watching over me. I noticed tears in my daughter's eyes. I felt like throwing in the towel. Don't worry, Mom, Dad's super strong, Haim said with a big smile, and Shiki chimed in with a nod. Absolutely. Trust me. Some chakra is tough enough to handle anything. Dad, Kushi chimed in. I found that my happiness and growth come from these connections to the world around me. It was like flipping a switch. The pain just disappeared, like it was never even there. I could feel my body bursting with strength once more, like millions of sources were firing on all cylinders, giving me a wave of chi energy. I have enough of their numbers to create a whole house using my chi energy crystals. It's time to head home. A thought popped into my mind, and just wouldn't budge. It was only when I stepped back from the sun that it hit me. My battles with chakras are finally behind me. It's been 130 years since the air nomads faced their tragic genocide. Earth Kingdom, huh? Have you heard of Ba Sing Se? National Library? All day long, a crowd had been building up near one of the biggest book collections on the continent. Many respected scholars, almost like they were back in their teenage years, got into passionate debates, waved their hands around, and had bright, excited eyes. Since early this morning, a long line has been forming with a bunch of prominent writers, historians, archivists, archaeologists, ethnographers, anthropologists, and others who are all connected to the study of history. So, the buzz around here is all about the newest shipment of ancient manuscripts from the library of Wan Shi Tong. I have to admit, it's a bit embarrassing, but even these educated and well-read folks were skeptical about the existence of real spirits right up until the end. It's tough to believe in something you've never experienced, right? Especially when it seems like the spiritual world is mostly for benders and Kai blockers. Little by little, folks started to understand the reality of the challenges that lay ahead. In a few years, they'd dive into Wan Shi Tong's records and then start talking about how to interact with benevolent spirits, all in an effort to keep the world's balance just the way we know it. Sure, we couldn't have done this without the great help from the 4 senators. After a few hours of diving into the new materials, another lively debate broke out in one of the conference halls at the National Library. So you think some copies made it through all these years? I expected more from you guys, one member of the small group of non-believers exclaimed, struggling to grasp how anyone could put their faith in such unverified information. You know, it's folks like you who kept our predecessors and teachers from stepping into the hidden library of the great Wan Shi Tong, shot back a member of the opposing side. My uncle Zhe, who was a big deal as the head of the anthropology department at Ba Sing Se University, visited the library ages ago. The stuff he brought back was actually turned down by our community at first. But over time, his work took off and got recognized all over the world. Haha, I see where you're coming from. You must be one of those folks who still think the earth is flat, right? That last comment was definitely dripping with sarcasm, since back in the day, anyone who said otherwise got stuck with some pretty embarrassing scientific nicknames. That's just ridiculous. Our planet is a geoid or an ellipsoid of rotation, he replied, unable to hold back his response to the jab. I get you, guys, continued the nephew of anthropologist Zhe. You know, we have to make sure all the information we get is spot on, but let's not get too caught up in our own views. We should keep an open mind. A big shout out to Senator Yo for making it happen and getting those amazing books delivered, plus opening up the doors to that mysterious library. If anyone's skeptical, they can check out the impressive walls of that place themselves and see all those hundreds of thousands of books and manuscripts up close. Who knows, you might even get a chance to chat with the keeper of that treasure trove of knowledge. I've heard he loves it when people bring him something fresh and new to explore. Oh, for sure, the discussions just kept going. There were so many topics left to dive into, debate, and argue about. Honestly, it's kind of a blessing that Wan Shi Tong is tied up and doesn't drop by the library too often. Otherwise, anyone who tries to undermine his knowledge would end up in a bit of a mess. Honestly, there's probably no better way to get a reaction than to tell the spirit of knowledge that what he knows is wrong or off base. So, it's pretty well known that benevolent spirits are out there. They're these peaceful and quirky little beings that often come across as quite cute. So, There are these dark spirits, scary and nasty creatures that wouldn't think twice about munching on a human. Not many folks get how the hierarchy of spiritual powers works, especially when it comes to benders and Kai blockers. They have to take this class called Spiritology as part of their required courses. Throughout the year, students dive into all sorts of useful info that's going to help them out down the road. In lectures, we talk about how to spot a spirit's element just by looking at them, go over their main weaknesses, and professors usually aim to help people stay safe when they come across the more aggressive beings from the spirit world. So, it looks like all this prep isn't for nothing. Governments are gearing up to introduce a new law that will require all benders and Kai blockers who are at least intermediate level to spend a whole year living in the spirit world. There are a lot of people in society who have a lot of power, whether they're benders or Kai blockers. They all need a way to channel their energy. It seems like humanity always finds a way to need an enemy, right? Otherwise, it feels like we might just end up turning on each other. Spirit world. First mixed settlement. A few months back, the first experimental village popped up, bringing together a mix of elemental spirits, benders, and Kai blockers all in one place. So, it seems like humans and spirits had to find a way to chat, right? Why not just watch how they act when they're hanging out together? At first, the benders and Kai blockers who showed up were pretty cautious about the spirits they encountered. After months in this world, they got used to spotting spirits just beyond the barricades. The way the spirits looked was kind of misleading. It's tough to think of them as a threat when you see a leaf walking on two legs or a rock that looks like a turtle just sitting there, hardly moving. Dark spirits, in contrast to the friendly ones, tend to have some pretty intimidating features like menacing growths, sharp claws, and teeth that show off their connection to the dark side. By the end of the first day, folks figured out that the spirits were more annoying than anything, just a bunch of harmlessly curious little beings. They were curious about it all, from the people to everything they did. It was tough to get mad at them, honestly. They had been told that the spirits around were like medium and lower ranks, kind of like human kids in their thinking. There was this one higher-ranking spirit in the mix, but he only stepped in when things got serious, letting his charges mingle with the other species. The results of this partnership showed up within the first week. The spirits started to wonder about a bunch of different things in their quiet, empty minds. Questions, on the other hand, showed that there was some kind of thinking going on. In the end, the spirits began to copy human actions more often. So, the earthbenders got to work right away, using their skills to build solid one-story houses. It was pretty interesting to see the spirits trying to copy what they were doing. The first few dozen houses were a real mess, honestly too sad to see without feeling a bit sorry for them. Later on, they were frequently spotted sitting together, chatting about building homes, as noted by the equally surprised higher spirit. Absolutely, it felt a lot like kindergarten. They often seemed unsure about their goals, but you could definitely see the progress, and that was what counted. You know, it's interesting to think that spirits at this level hardly ever think about creating anything. They're just content to lie on the ground and enjoy a comfortable life. After a few days, the settlement looked like a surreal painting, blending nicely kept houses with shacks. Honestly, you can't put it any other way. Their efforts at making homes were pretty obvious, and it was clear they were giving it their all. Every day brought new improvements. After watching for a month, it's clear that when a group of people steps into the spirits' organized lives, the spirits become way more active, and their smarts seem to increase every day. There was this one moment that showed it all. How do you, make a roof the right way? An earth spirit suddenly asked a bender. He actually spoke, the human said, a hint of disbelief in his voice as he looked over at his equally confused friends. It was only when the spirit asked again, this time turning down the word roof, that they finally managed to respond. For a whole month, this spirit had been trailing them, getting under their skin. Can you believe it? All this time, he was actually trying to learn how to talk. In the end, they helped him put together a solid house, and the spirit was happy about it. But being close by wasn't just good for the spirits. The benders picked up a lot, since spirits handle the elements way more effortlessly than humans do. Kai blockers, on the other hand, kind of flew under the radar since spirits were a bit cautious around people who had life energy coming off them now and then. Luckily, they were pretty flexible in their mindset. They got used to being around Kai blockers. After about a month and a half of getting used to things, they started sending them out to take care of small groups of opponents. Oh, that's when the higher-ups lost it, and some even said it out loud. The spirits had no clue about formations or ranks. They just charged at the enemy, looking like dark spirits. In the first clash, the friendly spirits were all over the place, and their wild movements ended up causing more trouble than anything else. Benders had a tough time using their techniques without accidentally hitting their teammates, and Kai blockers faced their own challenges. They needed to save spirit kamikazes from dark spirit attacks while trying to avoid friendly fire too. The commander in charge of uniting spirits and humans pondered, what did I do to deserve this punishment? I spent 5 whole years training recruits to work well with both Benders and Kai blockers, and this is how they thank me, by sending me to the spirit world to train more screw-ups. We value your teaching skills, so only you can come up with good ways for spirits and humans to interact, he said, clearly making fun of someone. His assistant meekly said, who else but his boss? He had heard lectures like these before, so he knew his boss would still do his job well and professionally. After 3 months of training together and a lot of stress from the commander-trainer, they seemed to have made some progress. A small group of ghosts gathered on a little plain across from them. Follow our instructions, and you'll be able to turn these creatures back into energy without losing anything. The commander spoke one more time, happy with the neat lines of people and spirits. Forward, he yelled, leading the way. They moved in a triangle, with Kai blockers at the front of the attack. In the first few seconds of the conflict, the green swords in their hands killed a few hundred spirits. The ghosts killed the rest of them. Benders then bombed the enemy's back ranks, making it harder for the Kai blockers to get through. They mowed down the dark spirits like a lawnmower through grass, working together as one. The commander thought to himself, they're ready to meet higher spirits. He was able to keep an eye on his students' actions while also fighting. Settlement of spirits that look like cats. Good news. Mr. Kuro's family has a new member. This happy news circulated rapidly across the settlement, and all the spirits rushed over to congratulate him and, of course, see the new baby, the spirit child. They mostly wanted to see. The female cat spirits who came to Kuro's residence looked at Chitara's companion with cold, calculating eyes. What else could they do? They had a child in no time at all. This weird creature must be able to make a living in some way. She looks just like me, Kuro said happily, looking at the young girl, who seemed like a normal human child at the time. Yorichi, show Grandpa what you can do, Kuro urged, his voice getting more and more desperate. She had purple hair, black skin, and golden eyes, which made her look like someone. Yo couldn't help but give his father-in-law a scornful look, as if to say, even you have a weakness. The little girl adored being the center of attention, so a small black-furred kitten showed up next to her. Just like me when I was young. Kuro laughed and got tiny. They did look a lot alike. Because of this, Kuro was willing to carry Yo around only to see more of these surprises. It was also discovered that some local spiritual mint can be used to manufacture lethal cocktails by cat spirits. No one would want to wake up the next morning with a mouth that felt like cats had peed in it and cats all around them. You know, certain doubts start to creep in. Bay of Yui. Island of the Air Temple. Don't play with your food, my little airbender, Yorichi said. She adored shaping her meal into a little roll and rolling it across her small table. We were not expecting the birth of our little child. For the past few years, I've been using my Kai to keep myself from getting pregnant, but it seems that with spirits, even a simple natural interchange of energy is enough. Our little troublemaker got her mother's element, which is lightning. And I can already picture her being a real goddess of speed in the future. She's still making amazing progress in learning new airbending methods. One spoonful for daddy, I remarked as I fed Yorichi. At that moment, a dragonhawk came in through the window, bringing the news of the day like it did every day. Thank you, I murmured, taking the tube out of its claw and pulling out a rolled-up, newly printed newspaper. I read the headline on the first page. The Sweating Thief, a famous criminal, caught. Over the past 2 months, nearly 1,000 citizens of Tianhai and the Earth Kingdom fell victim to him. Anyone who encountered the thief inevitably lost their valuables and money, with the total damage amounting to 7,000 gold pieces. Trains were his primary targets. The thief had a decent understanding of Kai, which he used to carry out his dark deeds. By enhancing his external secretion glands, he increased his sweating, releasing vapors that sent those around him into a deep sleep, the text read, accompanied by a photo of today's star. A good-natured-looking chubby man who appeared to be sweating profusely even in the picture. Kuvira muttered disapprovingly as she walked into the kitchen. The number of Kai-based crimes has gone up 20% since last year. With a contagious yawn, she said, "Good morning to everyone." She looked like a tired sparrow. Her hair was messy, her blouse was untucked, and her eyes looked a little tired. The poor thing doesn't get enough sleep because every new crime is different. In a way, finding Kai hasn't been all good, since when you mix Kai with human imagination, you get things that are hard to imagine, and not necessarily nice. Last night, they caught a guy who, using Kai, mastered the art of changing his appearance and voice. There weren't many victims, just a few families, by the way, all living in the same building as the criminal himself. The young man studied his targets for transformation very professionally, Kuvira said thoughtfully. Then, during the day, he calmly entered the apartments of newlyweds, pretending to be the husband who was not at work. That would have been fine, but yesterday one man came home early and caught his double in the act, so to speak, she said. I can picture it. You get home and see someone who looks a lot like you, busy with your wife. What do you mean, in the act? Yoruichi inquired, looking innocent, and we all looked at each other in embarrassment. We had completely forgotten about our little troublemaker, who loved to warm her ears. How could we not? Adult talks are usually so fun. They caught him stealing. Kuvira said hurriedly, but the small girl merely narrowed her eyes and didn't believe a word. I shoved my daughter toward the doorway and said, if you're done eating, go wake up mom. She might stay in bed all day. Okay, she said, her eyes shining with excitement. She will definitely start looking through the library for explanations of what we said. What a strange little airbender. I couldn't help but ask, what happened next? The events that are happening now are like a true TV show. He confessed to everything and was ready to face punishment, but his wives, well, you know what, they stepped in. Some of them started defending him, and from what they said, they thought it wasn't their husband, but the pleasure he gave them was unlike anything else, she claimed. I shook my head and said, what drama? It's better to call those women ex-wives. Their husbands wouldn't put up with this. Spirit World. Close to the Wan Shi Tong Library, Naruto. I pushed off of a step of Kai I had made under my feet and quickly shifted the direction of my flight. A beam of energy that would destroy everything shot out of one of the unsealed scrolls and sped past where I had been. The spirit of knowledge had a dozen scrolls floating around it. I am no longer afraid of fire after mastering the 7th gate of my Kai, I remarked calmly, standing in front of a wall of flames. Wan Shi Tong nodded quickly and took back some of the scrolls. We had been practicing for a good 2 hours, yet I wasn't even out of breath because I was simply utilizing Kai. There was no way to move the green Kai around in my palms because it was so thick. There is no point in being frugal with my Kai replenishing speed. Even now, no matter how big my methods are, they're simply droplets in the ocean. I finally put my power to be eternal to the test in real life. Thank the gods and spirits that it worked. We used one of my bodies as a test subject and measured how quickly it healed. Any part of the body that was missing came back right away, and the whole thing was fixed in less than a second. From what I know, the spirit of wisdom loves to surprise foes with tricks they didn't see coming. His collection of sealing scrolls includes different things he's kept from fights with other spirits in the past. His own methods are more perilous. The runes that float around him have the strangest effects, and some even copy my own special powers. For instance, I almost lost my hand when I was pulled to him. In general, Wan Shi Tong is the most well-rounded spirit I've met. He can battle people who are stronger than him because he is fast, strong, has a lot of Kai, is in control, and has a wide range of techniques. After hitting the spirit again, Kai started to burst out of my body without my control. I missed a few more of Wan Shi Tong's attacks as I tried to get back in charge. I was having trouble controlling my own Kai, and parchments started to wrap around my body. He remarked, how do you like my new invention? There's a small mark on your back now that changes your Kai and adds chaos to it. I noticed how quickly I attempted to get rid of the mark. You won't get there in time. The luminous papers started to erase my body. In less than a second, more than half of my body was gone, leaving only my head, collarbones, and right hand. The funniest aspect was that it didn't look bad at all. Even though I didn't have control over the Kai yet, huge streams of it quickly sealed all the open sections of my body, and in the next second, I was entire again. The best thing about all 7th level practitioners is that they can stay alive. I know of one character from the memory of the lion turtle. He was a protector of his village and a practitioner of the ultimate level. He was able to get rid of a stronger ancient spirit because the spirit got bored with beating a man who wouldn't die. Now it's my turn, I yelled, as I let go of a freezing attack. Everything within a few kilometers froze solid in an instant. Particles of matter were even frozen. It wasn't for nothing that I spent days with the spirits of time and space. Thanks to them and the ice spirit, I had added a second unique water-based talent to my armory. Seeing the surprise in Wan Shi Tong's eyes was very rewarding. With a smug smile, I said, "Victory is mine. I can't help it. I've been waiting for this moment since I was a low-level spirit." At the time, the spirit of knowledge looked like an impossible mountain that I longed to climb. And even when all my pieces got to the ancient level, Wan Shi Tong always made it a draw. This time, though, I won completely and without any conditions. The spirit of knowledge nodded and said, "No one's arguing." His calm answer made me feel a little less happy. He added, "You'd better tell me how you did that," plainly expecting the response. In a few years, I wouldn't be surprised if he could do the frozen effect again. Based on what I've read, his writing techniques are very flexible, therefore he should be able to copy things. The talk about abilities seamlessly moved on to other, more important issues. Now that we've managed to suppress Vatu and merge him with Rava, a whole host of other equally important problems arise. I can say with absolute certainty that the spirit realm and the human world will begin to merge into one. You yourself must understand, their current separation is not the norm. The more spiritual part will be drawn to the more material half, and according to my calculations, the Earth will increase by a full 30%. All this will be accompanied by significant landscape changes. Thousands of new active volcanoes will appear on Earth, cities may be buried under tons of water, territories of some steppe settlements will find themselves high in the mountains, and many areas will be shaken by powerful earthquakes. Thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people will die. I said in a low voice. Don't forget about the dark spirits that live after the battle. When they are near humans, they won't change their ways and will start eating everything alive. You wouldn't have started this talk if you didn't have a few ideas. I have some, he said, confirming what I thought. The easiest thing to do is to bring the floating islands from the spiritual plane. It won't be hard to build temporary homes on them with the right supplies. While we're busy freeing cities, they can peacefully ride out the stormy times in the air. Even now, the concentration of spiritual particles in the human plane will keep them afloat and not let them fall. Not a bad option, nay, it's even great. I can't think of anything else. But in my mind, I saw a palace floating in the clouds. I don't think anyone will mind if I take one small island for myself. I'll make it into a fancy home with pagodas on several levels and a garden full of gorgeous flora. Naruto? Wan Shi Tong's voice woke me up from my beautiful dreams. Yes, I have more bad news, he replied, seeming almost sad. Just tell me already, don't keep me in suspense, I said. I didn't even need to think about it to know this was something that had to do with me. By the time of the battle with Vatu, Aang won't have gathered all 100% of Rava's energy. The spirit of knowledge started using words and phrases I didn't quite get. But if I had to sum it up, it all came down to the fact that light energy is too complicated, so after a certain point, it gets harder and harder to collect. The situation is a bit like energy bending. Initially, everything goes smoothly and easily, but as you get closer to the conclusion, you need to put in a lot of time and power. Let me guess what you're trying to say. Only you, Naruto, have the power to help Rava win the final battle with Vatu. Based on the awkward quiet, I struck the nail on the head. Yes, only you can grow at an incredibly fast rate for spirits. Also, having a lot of Kai and a neutral source will be very important. All of us ancient spirits will just get in the way. Dark energy is above all of us. You've managed to keep something from another world inside you that doesn't follow the rules of the hierarchy of elements. Bending rules, I murmured, already understanding that this was a very likely consequence. Now I need to remember how Korra fought Vatu in that cartoon. It's not smart to blindly believe everything in an animated movie, but there is always a little truth in it. 135 years after the air nomads were killed. Not far from Tianhai Tech and Business University. The Influence of Kai on the Material World and Its Laws was the name of the course. The energetic old man, who was a well-known lecturer, said, "Don't forget to double-check your data. You only have 20 minutes left. Your final grade depends on today's lab results." I quickly looked over my notes and thought, it all seems right. I saw that I wasn't the only one who was done as I looked around the room. A lot of kids were slumped over in their chairs, looking tired. At that moment, I understood them completely. This was hard for me. even though I have a great memory. It's one thing to understand the theory, but it's a whole other thing to put it into practice. What am I doing here at this university? I want to learn more and fill up the holes in my knowledge. At last, I had the chance to get a thorough education. One that is better than what I had in my old life. For instance, the subject I'm studying right now. For 200 hours, we've been looking at how spiritual energy and life change the laws of physics we know. The impacts of these things are highly different. Every little thing matters, such as the sort of energy, how much there is, and how good it is. Even the phase of the moon and the position of the sun, which are two of nature's main energy sources, matter. It's a novel but interesting topic. We're entering a time where bending isn't simply a martial art. It's also a field based on science with results that have been proven in practice. 3 higher education degrees go beyond mandatory school. People didn't bother to come up with interesting titles for them, so they are just named the first, second, and third stages. The first stage is like getting a bachelor's degree. The second and third are like getting a master's or doctoral degree. Turn in your work. The bell rang and the professor's voice echoed. His assistants quickly picked up our notebooks. When you leave the classroom and go into the hallways, you are instantly surrounded by students. Some people went around with their noses in books, while others argued about things they cared about. Many were there just because their parents made them go. The 130 hectares around me are full of learning and science. A big university town has grown up in just a few years. There is also the Institute of Medicine and Healing, where 2 groups of students study different ways to help people. One only teaches theory, like learning about diseases, infections, and treatments through medicine and surgery. There is no interaction with Kai. The other faculty spends all of its time studying the secrets of life energy. It's interesting because it's not just waterbenders who find healing bending easier. Anyone who learns there and works hard may do it. The last and third school here is the University of Synergy of Technology and Bending. Our universities are similar in certain ways, yet our research areas are different. We look into things that can't be seen, like the laws of the world, while they tend to look at things that can be seen, although not always. With the help of both colleges, a year ago they produced a groundbreaking device, at least for me it was. Semiconductor panels that are specifically made to capture sunlight, or Kai, from the sun. The technology is similar to the solar panels I used to have. You can then turn the stored energy into electricity or Kai, which is full of all 4 components. To put it simply, humanity has not only harnessed untamed cosmic energy, but they have also changed it into something that is useful and looks like Earth's Kai. Kai particle converters are currently being improved, and they don't make much energy yet. The second protective layer, which is just after the ozone layer, stops most wild particles from getting through. There's a fair probability we'll be able to launch a few orbiting stations in the next 10 years with my help. These stations will send purified and changed particles back to Earth. There is never too much energy. The population is rising quickly, and more people are learning to bend. The average lifetime has gone up by years, and all of these people use bending energy throughout their lives. Most particles go back to the world when they die, but a very small number, literally a few, disappear into oblivion. This needs to be thought upon too. There are also parks, a dozen restaurants and cafes, dorms, and clothing stores. Everything is there, so no one has to go to the city. I have an hour free right now, so I'm going to my favorite tea house. After I placed my order, I sat down on a couch and heard a loud motorcycle engine. A sleek auto motorcycle sped by and came to an abrupt stop. Its owner was a gorgeous beauty, Asami Sato, the most attractive lady at all 3 schools and a very desirable match. She's the only person I know here. Yes, I haven't made any real pals in the last 2 years. I could be too old for that. I anticipated your presence here, Bigo, she stated, removing her helmet with a flourish to reveal her striking features. The young woman distinctly resembles her mother, those striking green eyes, elegant black hair, and a well-defined hourglass silhouette. I would like to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Bigo, and I am currently a second-year student who has experienced the challenges of being an orphan. To deeply engage with the field of science, I established a new, refined identity. Certainly, I could have pursued private lessons with professors, however, they are occupied with their own projects. I aim to avoid causing any distractions for them. Hi, Asami, I greeted softly, instantly aware of the numerous intense stares directed my way. The male students expressed discontent regarding her allocation of time with me. That may explain my difficulty in forming friendships. I haven't put in significant effort. Although she shares her mother's physical appearance, Her character and intelligence are distinctly inherited from her father. She is sufficiently committed to manage two disciplines, one in science and the other in business and management. Asami is in the process of preparing to assume her father's role, allowing him the opportunity to focus on his own initiatives. What led to my friendship with Asami Sato? Please refrain from inquiring. I am unable to provide a precise explanation. Following several collaborative lectures, she began to utilize me as a barrier against unwelcome attention. I found it unappealing, yet it was difficult to decline a request from someone I have known since childhood. Even if she is unaware that the individual seated beside her is a close friend of her father's, aged 53. I maintain a calm and quiet demeanor, focusing solely on attending classes and additional lessons with professors. As time went on, what initially started as a practical arrangement evolved into engaging discussions, ultimately leading to a friendship. It was probably advantageous that I did not gaze at her in the same manner as other men. I appreciated her beauty, as it resembled the admiration one has for a masterpiece. What seems to be troubling you? She seated herself next to me, quickly taking my tea and consuming it in a single sip. Her actions heightened the tension, eliciting a murmur from the back tables. Indirect kiss. I wish to experience a single day free from the negativity of my peers, I remarked, surveying the room with a serious expression. It effectively silenced the majority of them. I will not tolerate being treated poorly, so during the initial months, I needed to demonstrate that I am not to be underestimated. Even Asami was affected by my gaze. I must emphasize that the responsibility does not solely rest with me, she stated, lightly striking my arm. I would like to share an observation. Some individuals may find your appearance unappealing. What seems to be the issue? You regard others as if they lack understanding. Occasionally, there is a trace of condescension in your demeanor. You even direct that gaze towards me. And I am merely 3 months your senior, I must acknowledge. Any emotion she displays is truly captivating. I will take that into consideration, I stated reflectively, evaluating my actions and acknowledging the existence of such moments. There's no need for excessive contemplation. The important point is, your appearance no longer concerns me, she stated with confidence. Please be informed that today's final lecture has been cancelled due to the professor's injury. There is a concern regarding the staff here. The high level of enthusiasm displayed by some individuals frequently leads to lapses in basic safety protocols, resulting in the cancellation of at least one class each month. There is an additional update, she said quietly, leaning in closer. My parents are away for a couple of days, leaving the house entirely to me. Would you be interested in a swim in the pool? Quite enticing, wouldn't you agree? She bit her lip, her tongue almost grazing my ear. I do not possess swim trunks, I responded flatly, regretting my decision to allow this friendship to evolve into something more intimate. That is incorrect. This is not a public pool. Swimming without attire is permitted. She finally made contact with my ear. I apologize, Asami, but it appears you have been conversing with your father's colleague throughout this time, even stating it feels quite unfortunate. There are no objections, she stated, noting my reluctance. Without further discussion, she guided me outside to a motorcycle that bore a resemblance to a Harley. Understood, I reflected, preparing myself. Upon our arrival, I will disclose my feelings, allowing her to determine whether she wishes to maintain this friendship. I must admit that I find Asami to be an exceptionally attractive woman, and the thought of marrying her is certainly appealing. If she chooses to join my family, that would be wonderful. If she decides otherwise, I will accept that decision. Please join me and secure your grip. Let us navigate with the breeze. On several occasions during our swift journeys, I have had to discreetly employ my bending. Otherwise, an accident would have been inevitable. Positioned behind Asami, I encircled her waist with my arms. Her motorcycle model is not intended for 2 passengers, resulting in her being almost on top of me. I am hesitant to cause her any emotional distress. Even through her attire, I sensed Asami's enthusiasm. It appears that she is not the only individual wishing to confess today. This situation is quite complex. The journey was lengthy. The Sato family's residence is situated in the affluent outskirts of the city. As I navigated through traffic, I observed the rapid transformation of the city. Only a few years prior, we faced significant traffic congestion. However, those issues have since been resolved. An elevated train thundered above, subway tracks lay beneath, and an unconventional tram traversed to our left. Significant investments in public transportation have effectively addressed the issue. Now every resident can access any destination at a minimal cost. Following a duration of 40 minutes, we proceeded into a secured zone. Behind the trees stood an estate that harmoniously combined futuristic and traditional elements. Please feel free to leave your belongings in the guest room. Asami gestured politely. Please ensure you are familiar with the location of all necessary items. Let's convene at the pool. Residential areas surrounding Tianhai City. Sato Estate. The estate featured an expansive and elongated swimming pool. The area featured numerous seats, loungers, several tables equipped with fresh towels and water, a couple of exquisite mosaic paintings, and a few massage tables. At present, Yo was walking anxiously around the pool. He remained unimpressed by such demonstrations of affluence, particularly given his previous visits to this location. Nonetheless, all his prior visits had been entirely amicable, without any unclear circumstances such as those encountered today. Occasionally, a moment of intimacy had transpired between them. Ultimately, a pool and individuals in minimal attire did not create an environment conducive to a strictly platonic interaction. Should I disclose everything immediately or preserve the day's enjoyment and wait until the conclusion? Yo contemplated, immersing himself in the pool to alleviate his anxious thoughts. Upon his emergence, a remarkable figure of elegance and grace appeared before him. Asami halted in the doorway. Her deep red bra struggled to accommodate her ample fourth-size breasts, which appeared eager to escape their confines. The matching panties elegantly highlighted the essentials, showcasing her smooth, well-groomed bikini line with precision. "What is your opinion?" she inquired with a hint of timidity. It was the inaugural occasion on which she donned such a bold swimsuit. Typically, she preferred options that were more modest and covered. "They have expanded once more," he remarked with a sense of wonder. "I am at a loss for words, Asami. Your allure is undeniable," he exclaimed with increased volume. If not for his kai, he would have remained in the water longer to allow his erection to subside naturally. The intensity of his gaze was palpable, evoking a strong reaction within Asami. She felt a tingling sensation below as she instinctively squeezed her thighs. "I am taking the plunge," she announced, diving into the pool to conceal her embarrassment. 15 minutes later, after both had grown weary of their water activities, an uncomfortable moment ensued. They were uncertain about how to initiate the conversation, and Asami felt apprehensive about expressing her feelings. "I wished to express," they started at the same time. "Allow me to proceed first," Yo stated, his posture rigid. "I would like to express my sincere apologies for any untruths I may have conveyed. Our friendship holds genuine value, yet I must acknowledge that I have not been entirely forthcoming about my true self. The voice and appearance you perceive are part of a persona I have constructed." "Then who are you?" Asami inquired, striving to maintain her composure despite the multitude of thoughts racing through her mind. Could he have been an earthbender utilizing Kai to alter his appearance, specifically aiming at the Sato family? Or was this merely an inappropriate jest? Do you truly wish to proceed with this inquiry? "Let us proceed efficiently." She crossed her arms under her breasts, accentuating their appearance. "Understood," Yo acknowledged, gradually transitioning into Senator Yo. "Uncle Yo?" she inquired with a hint of hesitation. "This cannot be," Asami exclaimed, shaking her head vigorously. Had she maintained a friendship with her esteemed uncle all this time, even desiring to express her affection? "Demonstrate your identity as Uncle Yo. On your 5th birthday, I may have tickled you a bit too enthusiastically, resulting in an unexpected incident. On your first day of elementary school, your nerves got the best of you, leading you to spend the entirety of the first lesson in the restroom." "Please, stop," she exclaimed, feeling a wave of embarrassment. "I understand. I regret not disclosing my identity earlier, as I never anticipated the situation would escalate to this extent," Yo remarked with a sense of fatigue. "I sought a quality education, and I believed I had found my boyfriend." She mirrored his sigh. They exchanged glances and erupted in laughter, alleviating the tension. They initiated the exchange of their perspectives, resulting in a strengthened bond. Asami gradually recognized that Big O's personality closely mirrored that of Yo's, which explained her attraction to him. As the discussion shifted to his spouses and offspring, Asami's demeanor darkened. Emotions do not simply vanish, regardless of her attempts to dismiss them. "I trust there are no more secrets, right?" she quipped, observing Uncle Yo's attention focused on her prominent figure. "Asami, this situation is inappropriate," she reflected, experiencing a surge of excitement. "Indeed, there is one. Your parents are aware, but I trust you will maintain this confidentiality as well," Yo stated with a serious tone. "Chief Naruto, Roku of the Earth Kingdom, and Wan of the Fire Nation, They are all manifestations of my being, governed by a singular consciousness, he concluded, his form transforming once more. At this moment, I am presenting my authentic self. It is true what they say about the ruler of the Northern Water Tribe. His beauty is indeed extraordinary, Asami remarked, taken aback as she observed his transformed appearance. His lengthy, pristine white hair was striking, and his jewel-like eyes appeared to penetrate her very essence. An undeniable charmer. It is important to highlight that upon mastering the 7th chakra gate, Naruto ceased utilizing his true form in public, intentionally incorporating imperfections due to its overwhelming power. Upon observing his symmetrical features, women experienced a resurgence of primal instincts, recognizing him as an ideal partner for procreation. Perhaps I should investigate the reasons behind the numerous women willing to marry him, Asami pondered, her curiosity piqued. I am not being compelled to marry him immediately. I have made my decision. Uncle Yo, you will be the one to guide me into adulthood. Even Yo was taken aback by her unexpected announcement. Are you certain? He inquired, with a hint of concern. Asami remained silent but guided Yo onto a lounger, positioning herself over him and pressing her lips against his, as though she feared her determination might wane. During the following 2 days, they remained on the estate, exploring various forms of intimacy and positions. So, what did you think? Yo inquired. Uncommon, yet pleasant, Asami murmured, positioned on her stomach with her visibly enlarged belly. Her anal ring was extended, with Yo's member still present. After 5 minutes of thrusting, Asami acknowledged that anal sex was equally enjoyable as vaginal sex. Look at what you have caused. Asami indicated her swollen belly. Regardless of the amount of fluid that had leaked, her appearance still resembled that of someone who was 4 or 5 months pregnant. I acknowledge my shortcomings as a father, Yo stated with a sense of gravity. In pursuit of physical pleasure, I have made grave sacrifices, impacting countless potential lives. Please take this seriously. What if it stretches and sags in the future? I am recognized as a leading Kai specialist, Yo stated with confidence. I am confident in my ability to address any challenge. Now, please come here. Your current appearance has sparked a strong desire to engage further. You reiterated the same point 15 minutes prior. I don't recall that. A passage of time, 15 years later. Despite Tianhai's significant expansion, Ba Sing Se, the capital of the Earth Kingdom, continues to be the largest and most populous city on the planet. Under Lao Baifeng's adept leadership, the city has undergone a remarkable transformation. The population is uniformly distributed throughout all rings, alleviating the previously overwhelming congestion on the streets. For several months, residents have observed a substantial rock formation suspended above them. At first, it instilled a sense of urgency. Every second seemed to bring the risk of the massive boulder descending, threatening to overwhelm their delicate existence. However, they have become familiar with it. The government has offered clarifications, and the years of Lao's leadership have fostered significant trust among the populace. We are all facing our mortality. These may be our final years of tranquility. All preparations seem futile. Let us embrace life. We are no match for an ancient force, exclaimed a disheveled man, his voice trembling with emotion. He displayed a sizable sign adorned with crimson letters. The end is near, disclosing the facts regarding the forthcoming harmonic convergence. When planetary alignment occurs and spiritual portals at the poles converge, has resulted in adverse repercussions. The awareness of an impending confrontation with a formidable, ancient spirit is not something that every individual can mentally process. Some perceive a lack of optimism regarding a favorable resolution. For example, the individual currently raising his voice was previously a senior officer at a facility with security violations. Following the loss of close friends due to an external influence, he experienced a decline in his motivation to fight. Observing the effortless dominance of a higher spirit over them, he determined that humanity had no possibility of prevailing against Vadu. We kindly request that you accompany us, stated the police officers as they approached the man after a brief 5 minutes. Instability is the least desirable outcome at this time. Fortunately, propaganda evolves accordingly. People know humanity's achievements have granted access to realms they never imagined. Chi energy emitters are distributed globally, resulting in a significant increase in the birth rate of children possessing bending abilities. Individuals lacking inherent abilities can still strive for mastery over life energy. A multitude of airships arrive daily on the island, transporting construction materials and supplies. What is the status of the progress? Inquired Roku, who had become a member of the inspection committee. By our estimates, Everything will be ready in 6 months, replied the lead overseer of the island's transformation. The maximum capacity is set at 500,000 individuals. Food and water provisions are sufficient for 1 month. However, with effective rationing, this duration can be extended to 3 months. Is it true that only a quarter of the current metropolis's population remains? Contemplated Roku. We will need to relocate 3 additional islands of comparable size. He had already introduced 30 islands into this realm, but expanding the portal to the necessary dimensions required not only all his entities but also the assistance of at least 5 ancient spirits. Fortunately, the entire combat-ready population would reside in the spirit world. Otherwise, there would not be sufficient flying islands. Proceed. The sewage system is designed to run directly downward, effectively minimizing technical water consumption. The ventilation system operates efficiently, ensuring that accommodating numerous individuals in confined areas is not an issue, they articulated, approaching one of the residential buildings. The interior featured a compact, fully equipped kitchen, multiple bathrooms, and several capsule bedrooms. Families with young children are afforded larger living spaces, while others are left to accommodate themselves in these notably confined quarters. There are no alternatives. This is the sole method to manage such a large number. Recently, there has been a noticeable sense of urgency in the world, as though time is becoming increasingly limited. We are pleased to announce that the necessary number of airbenders has been successfully attained. A cohort of 10,000 skilled professionals, each possessing mid-level expertise, alleviated Roku's concerns. Currently, all progress is proceeding as planned. There is another concern that requires attention. The outcome of the world's merging remains uncertain. Wan Shi Tong acknowledges that natural disasters are inevitable, yet their intensity remains uncertain. Unfortunately, the outcome remains uncertain. There is a possibility that all individuals in the spirit world at that time may perish. They are unable to exert influence over this matter, thus they remain optimistic for a favorable outcome. Spirit Realm. Tree of Time. Your challenges are quite entertaining. It is evident that your limited understanding cannot comprehend the reality. Success will ultimately be mine. The foreboding declaration, resonating for miles, was made by Vatu, the great spirit of darkness and chaos. He is quite bothersome, I remarked. In addition to his regular emission of dark energy, his voice consistently captivates the emotions of others. I apologize, Senator, but I am unable to continue, murmured a practitioner, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Those who are feeling unwell, please return. Allow the next group to take over, I announced, receiving a response of relieved cheers. We have recently initiated efforts to strengthen the perimeter surrounding the Tree of Time, which serves as the central point for dispersed dark spirits globally. The challenging nature of working near the source of dark emanations necessitates a rotation of personnel every 2 hours. Extended exposure to Vatu has led to instances of madness in some individuals. I also faced challenges in adapting, yet my capabilities appear to have a significant impact. The training is rigorous, yet it is essential for practitioners and benders to ultimately confront Vatu's presence. Imposing barriers now encircle Vatu's confinement, equipped with cutting-edge weaponry of significant destructive capability. Although I have restricted classical firearms in this area, confidential research remains ongoing. While future changes may occur, at this moment, I require the support of as many individuals as possible. The use of firearms would lead to an increase in fatalities. Human resources are challenging to substitute. As living standards improve, families tend to have fewer children. In the past, it was common for families to have 3 or 4 children. Currently, having even 1 child appears to be uncommon. It is essential to promote population growth in a nuanced manner. A direct approach such as simply stating, "have more children," is not effective. Submit to me. Vatu's commanding roar pierced through the already dim barrier, allowing dark miasma to seep through. The effects of his intense energy were evident. Numerous individuals lost their focus, some grasped their heads, and those with less resolve expressed themselves with loud outbursts. It required 30 minutes for individuals to regain their composure. Vatu's actions are referred to as dark tides. The longer their absence persists, the more powerful the subsequent wave becomes. Although I find it challenging, it fortifies both will and heart. My distinctive bending abilities have developed considerably. My firebending now absorbs enemy energy, enhancing its potency. Earthbending harnesses a vast reservoir of energy when I am firmly grounded. Airbending has developed a level of self-awareness, which has improved the autonomy of my techniques. While it may not compare to Vatu, Every detail is significant. One can never predict what may ultimately prove to be life-saving. Recently, I have concentrated on discovering my inner essence. Korra's bond with hers provided her with an opportunity to confront Vaatu. Astral projection appears to encapsulate all spiritual, life, and mental energies, encompassing aspects such as willpower and refined techniques. However, it remains uncertain how an able yet unremarkable girl was able to produce such a formidable projection. I may be overlooking certain aspects, or perhaps anyone, given the appropriate circumstances, has the capacity to confront darkness. Bay. Air Temple Island. Father, Yoruichi is causing me some distress once more, expressed a young woman with short black hair and striking green eyes. She cast a sharp glance at another girl with a curvier figure, whose exposed back highlighted a flowing mane of purple hair. The brunette displayed a confident smirk. Kitten, I kindly ask that you refrain from disturbing Opal, I requested of my energetic daughter. What did I mention regarding that outfit? Please choose something less form-fitting. She opted for her favorite black bodysuit, complemented by stockings that added a touch of flair. Do you not find it appealing, father? She inquired, presenting her well-defined, exposed figure with confidence. Yoruichi is the only daughter who perceives no issue with her father's advances. This may be attributed to my own actions. I invested a part of myself in them as they grew, to guarantee their protection. I still do not fully comprehend this bond. Perhaps it explains why Yui and I share a connection that goes beyond that of mere siblings. How inappropriate! Opal exclaimed, shielding my eyes. I will inform mother. She has already indicated that she doesn't mind, Yoruichi stated with a shrug. It is evident that Chitara's influence, as a spirit, renders human morals inconsequential to her. It's all right, Opal, I reassured, gently stroking my youngest. Opal, my daughter with Toph, has already achieved mastery in earth, lava, and metal bending. Yoruichi, please refrain from bothering your sister, I stated assertively. Consider seeking out individuals who align more closely with your capabilities, such as Kushi or Haim, I remarked with a smile, aware that she would likely steer clear of them. They would discipline her, in contrast to Opal, who has not yet reached her sister's level of strength and frequently finds herself as Yoruichi's focus. HMPH, Yoruichi remarked, directing a derisive look towards Opal. Thank you, father, Opal stated, embracing me with her arms around my neck. Among all my daughters, she exhibits the greatest gentleness and compliance. Regardless of her age, she continues to appreciate hugs and intimacy. I will do anything for my little princess, I said, kissing her forehead, which made her cheeks flush charmingly. I nearly overlooked that, she exclaimed. Mom, Kuvira has requested your assistance. Another spirit-powered bender has emerged. The others are in the spirit world. I will proceed, I stated. A contemporary challenge, the rise of influential benders. The majority adhere to the law, yet a few may have an inflated perception of their capabilities. Last month, I had to decide to permanently discontinue one. His authority clouded his judgment, resulting in disorder. The situation is being effectively managed. All of my wives and nearly all of my daughters now possess strength comparable to ancient spirits. 171 years following the air nomad genocide Ba Sing Se. Roku device. Vine leaves gracefully swirling in the breeze. Autumn has arrived in our serene garden. A young soldier makes his way back home. A courageous soldier makes their way back home. The lyrics resonated in my thoughts as I ascended a modest hill topped by a lone tree. At its foundation, adjacent to the robust roots, were two portraits displayed. One was associated with the late Lu Ten, son of the Dragon of the West, while the other, more recent, portrayed General Iroh himself. Shortly thereafter, modest offerings, apples, rice wine, and a pair of lit funerary candles, were positioned alongside their images. 1 year ago, Uncle Azula departed from this world. Zuko expressed a deep desire to join his son, however, he could not bear to miss witnessing his cherished nephew's firstborn grow up. Zuko named his first child Lu Ten to honor his cousin, and Iroh held a deep affection for the boy. It is possible that, in his absence, Iroh would have left this world at an earlier time. Iroh maintained his connections with Azula and Ursa and frequently engaged with young Tomoko. A limited number of individuals from the previous generation continue to be present today. Bumi, having reached the realm of the ancient spirits 2 decades prior, commenced a new journey. 5 years ago, Master Waterbender Paku and his wife Kanna, grandmother to Sokka and Katara, departed from this world together, leaving behind a small yet resilient family. Paku ultimately decided to make Kana his wife, albeit after some delay. The renowned swordsman of the Fire Nation, Piandao, passed away contentedly, having encountered a diligent young man to whom he imparted his expertise. Zheng is the sole survivor, yet his former subordinates are relentless in their pursuit, not allowing him a moment of peace. He could be regarded as a grandfather numerous times, as his colleagues evolved into his children and brothers. He is consistently welcomed, and each day finds him engaged, amidst children of various ages. I made subtle adjustments to my features as I descended into the lower ring. I encountered a consistently bleak and somber atmosphere. Throughout the area, expressions of grief resonated as families held tightly to their fathers, sons, daughters, and brothers. This particular mood guided me to the hill, the final resting place of the Fire Nation's royal family. "Son, perhaps they will be able to manage without you this time, wouldn't you agree?" A middle-aged woman remarked, holding her only son closely as tears flowed down her cheeks. "I am unable to comply with that request, mother," the young man stated with conviction, shaking his head firmly. He had visited the spirit world numerous times and observed the malevolence that could escape. Only through the use of force could they maintain global peace, and he was prepared to sacrifice his life for this cause. "Please heed your older sister's advice and remember to consume your fruits and vegetables, understood?" As I continued down the street, I came across another family, a resilient woman accompanied by children of differing ages. "I have previously visited the Air Temple Island. Your Aunt Shea will be residing in proximity. Should you encounter any issues, please feel free to reach out to her for assistance. In case of emergencies, certain benders and bending masters are required to stay with the residents of the islands. Troop deployments have commenced. Dark spirits are steadily converging at the Tree of Time, undoubtedly summoned by Vatu. In 1 week, the harmonic convergence will take place. The barrier that contains the essence of darkness and chaos has weakened, significantly increasing the difficulty of remaining in proximity to it. Fortunately, individuals recognize that there is no option for retreat. They must persevere through this challenge at all costs. Wan Shi Tong indicates that the process of establishing the barrier of the 4 elements is expected to require approximately 2 minutes. For a complete 120 seconds, Rava and I must restrain Vatu, ensuring he does not pose a threat to the benders who are preparing. The duration of that time could extend significantly, as our practice sessions were conducted under optimal conditions, absent of any malevolent, omnipotent spirit before us, and free from the threat of other dark spirits lurking behind. I trust that the benevolent forces and our defenders will successfully counter the malevolent assaults. To achieve a more favorable outcome, I have dedicated the past few years to eliminating adversarial spirits. Indeed, while their numbers remain stable, there has been a notable reduction in the presence of the ancient spirits. Attentively considering the perspectives of the city's residents, I steadily built my determination. While I possessed clarity, the burden of responsibility weighing on me hindered my ability to think effectively. I have come to understand that I am not alone. A significant number of courageous individuals were prepared to stand alongside me in the fight. Shortly thereafter, I arrived at the primary headquarters in the spirit world. A multitude of individuals in military attire moved with purpose, without distinction by nation or bending type, all united for a singular great purpose. Even entities distinct from humans integrate seamlessly into the environment. All around me, imposing walls of genomite ascended, equipped with formidable artillery of steel, exuding an aura of security. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation from Vatu, balanced by the unwavering resolve of all those in attendance. The captivating starry sky was traversed by aircraft prepared to deploy our latest innovation, hydrogen bombs. Although lacking the ability to bend, they were capable of destroying spirits with the same effectiveness as a coordinated assault from multiple ancients. Regrettably, their availability is constrained, otherwise, we would not jeopardize the safety of individuals and benevolent entities. Within the primary structure, all tacticians and strategists convened. They appeared to be deeply engaged in their discussions, completely unaware of my presence. A comprehensive map of the region was spread across a large table, adorned with figurines representing the most formidable spirits and humans, our strategic assets, if you will. Their discussion revealed a strategic division of the defensive circle into 4 distinct zones, each overseen by a designated commander. In the east, Lao Baifeng would take the lead. His experience alone exceeded that of all others present in the room combined. The Western Territories would come under the leadership of Chong, the son of the renowned Admiral Chong, who previously commanded the Eastern Fleet of the Fire Nation. It seems that the admonition his father provided years ago had a significant impact, as the previously aimless son has now adopted a more serious demeanor. His presence here demonstrated that he was worthy of it. He was tasked with the defense of a human city within the spirit world. To the side, an older, somewhat graying Zuko and Sokka engaged in conversation. The leader of the southern water tribe would protect the northern region. His resourcefulness and tenacity were unparalleled. Otherwise, an average individual would not have been able to reach the South Pole. Their rate of development was almost comparable to that of the North Pole. Sokka's strength is evident in his ability to turn weaknesses into opportunities for growth. When faced with challenges, he systematically works to enhance his skills until he achieves his desired level of proficiency. I hold him in high regard. Zuko would assume control of the final zone. Genetic predisposition plays a significant role. Notwithstanding limited experience in extensive conflicts, Ozai's son demonstrated that he was the optimal selection. Having some free time, I chose to dedicate it to my family. Despite my desire to ensure their safety, my wives and daughters possessed significant bending abilities, each capable of making a critical impact. Even young Opal, the youngest and most cherished, had attained the stature of the ancient spirits. Before I could fully appreciate the comfort of our family gathering, a disruptive alarm sounded, indicating an impending threat. They have arrived ahead of schedule, 6.5 days remain. Despite their significant numbers, they were able to assault our defenses for a duration of 6 days. Spirit Realm. A few hours later, as I looked toward the horizon, it appeared that the spirits were infinite. A significant influx of varied beings advanced, overpowering the slower, less resilient spirits. You might not suspect they're your more malevolent relatives, a fatigued firebender remarked, leaning against a wall. Alongside him were several other spirits, their appearances endearing and innocuous. I understand, you're not particularly inclined to engage in conversation, he gestured, attentively observing the conflict unfolding beneath the walls. Benders were diligently engaged, allowing bending masters the opportunity to restore their Kai. Their verdant blades dispatched numerous spirits. However, his attention was directed towards a particular individual, a formidable back with whom he was familiar. My father always believed I would discover a talent for airbending. His disappointment was palpable when my mother's lineage revealed a gift for firebending. The reality was difficult to confront. Perhaps this is why I committed myself to mastering lightning bending, seeking to distance myself from darker influences, he articulated. Engagements consistently induced a sense of unease in him, and this unease prompted him to be more talkative. This practice enabled him to regain control. At the age of 16, he could not have envisioned engaging in such a significant battle. Historical lessons reveal that the world has consistently been in a state of flux. Ongoing local conflicts within the Earth Kingdom, the Fire Nation's assertive expansion, and the complex machinations of the Fire Sages. However, it all seemed remote, quite removed. I trust they will overcome Vatu, he remarked, a sense of foreboding washing over him. In the past, he would have experienced fear, but one becomes accustomed to the presence of the primary dark spirit. Shortly thereafter, the prominent figures entered the competition. A formidable golden dragon emitted a searing white flame upon the disarrayed ranks of spirits. A colossal entity clad in ancient armor generated subtle tremors with every movement. A humorous monkey spirit brandished a wooden staff, skillfully dispersing numerous spirits with ease. A particularly notable figure was a towering anthropomorphic spirit, his form composed entirely of fire. His intense flames obstructed every spirit, rendering them unable to proceed. The final task was to address the small groups that had evaded capture. The relentless onslaught of the dark spirits appeared to be unending. An increasing number of ancient spirits manifested, resulting in escalating losses. Fortunately, their team attempted to attract such influential entities away from the barriers. Unfortunately, it did not consistently operate with efficiency. On the fourth day of intense conflict, when all were both morally and physically drained, the adversary came close to penetrating the defenses. Senator Yo effectively resolved the situation, generating a significant wave of vibrating air with a single hand gesture. It traversed several kilometers, eliminating thousands of dark spirits in an instant. This revitalized their determination, redirecting their attention to the conflict at hand. They understood that with just a bit more time, they would be able to reunite with their loved ones. Defeat is not an option. Only success is acceptable. Spirit Realm. Day of Harmonious Convergence. Roku Naruto Yo 1. It has commenced, I stated quietly, standing beside my other selves. As of now, none of my most trusted or closest associates is aware that all 4 individuals are, in fact, the same person. I believe that disclosing such information may create a disconnect between me and others, so we will proceed with the merger once everyone is fully engaged in their responsibilities. An arc of highly concentrated spiritual energy formed above us. Upon the convergence of the 2 energy beams, a formidable and dazzling burst of light was produced. The increased tension of the spiritual particles made the airfield denser and more substantial. Aang stood nearby, tasked with releasing Rava at the appropriate moment. He successfully restored nearly 90% of the spirit of light and harmony's power, and based on the circumstances, the now awakened Rava would determine the appropriate moment to engage in the battle. I possess a small glimmer of hope that I can independently contain Vatu without depleting Rava's energy. The challenge is further complicated by the necessity to not only confine the adversary in a single location but also to diminish his power to Rava's level, thereby enabling the establishment of a balance. At long last, liberation, resonated the voice of the liberated spirit of darkness, enveloping all in his thick and unsettling energy. Several individuals with less resilience experienced a decline in their mental stability. After a thorough assessment of the surroundings, I released a sigh of relief. All individuals tasked with constructing the barrier remained steadfast, their expressions reflecting an intensified resolve. Vatu, initially modest in size, commenced a period of rapid growth. As previously established, his hollow within the tree cannot be regarded as a legitimate prison, as it fails to inhibit his ability to regain his strength. Rava, conversely, frequently found herself needing to exhaust her already limited resources. You have meticulously crafted the ideal circumstances for me with your own efforts. Vatu proclaimed. Shall we proceed with the customary villainous monologue? I have been fully restored for an extended period and could have departed from the Tree of Time at any moment. I am experiencing a sense of unease regarding this situation, however, I bided my time until I became even more formidable. His imposing, ray-like form quivered slightly, expanding further. Simultaneously, dark energy started to converge upon him from all directions, departing from the forms of other shadowy entities. The event evidently diminished the overall strength of all opposing spirits by approximately 30%. However, the intensity of the confrontations remained unchanged. It appears that Vatu was in the process of reclaiming the energy he had previously provided. He has demonstrated increased strength compared to his previous state. A concerned female voice resonated in my ears. Exercise caution, child of another realm. The spirit of light consistently referred to me in this manner. My neutral energy appeared to perplex her, as according to the principles governing this world, it should not exist within this universe. This is precisely what Wan Shi Tong anticipated, I reflected somberly. We had presumed that the surplus energy he had previously expended would not be advantageous to him, however, we did not dismiss the potential for him to gain even greater power. Organized rows of benders started to gather, incorporating small stones engraved with the writings of Wan Shi Tong. The area was instantly infused with the immense energy of all 4 elements. Your toys will not assist you, Vatu bellowed, his formidable tentacles thrashing unpredictably. Advantageously, he is currently underestimating us, I considered, efficiently merging with all my bodies without further delay. I momentarily closed my eyes to concentrate on my internal landscape. Deep within, concealed from view, resides my true strength, my inner Kai. Shortly, a silhouette illuminated by faint light emerged in front of me. If Korra's astral projection was blue, mine tended to be more beige. The energy, which I find difficult to fully grasp, emanated from the extensive variety of sources coexisting within my body. In the next moment, I opened my eyes, positioned 30 meters above the ground, enveloped within my divine spirit. Vatu was nearly twice the size of my astral projection, clearly illustrating the disparity in our powers. Fascinating, the spirit of chaos observed, scrutinizing me as if I were an unfamiliar specimen in a zoo. Unfortunately, it appears that I am about to experience discomfort at this petting zoo. I was unable to sustain this imposed condition for an extended period, so without engaging in superfluous conversation, I promptly proceeded towards the spirit. From my back emerged several tentacles that secured themselves to his limbs. Upon contact with his body, a hissing sound emerged, reminiscent of the collision between fire and water. In those locations, the brightness of my projection diminished somewhat. It appears that, in the absence of my balanced energy, I would have compromised my integrity some time ago. I am prepared for my true adversary, he asserted, directing a focused beam of dark energy towards me. Evading was no longer feasible, as I positioned myself just inches from his face. There was minimal space. Only 5 or 6 steps and we would be close to the benders. I was able to endure the impact, yet my awareness began to blur. In an instant, he unleashed an even more lethal beam, one that I found impossible to withstand. My substantial frame was propelled upward, almost overwhelming the firebenders. Fortunately, I was still able to control the elements, and at the last moment, I utilized airbending to avert the collision. Weak beings, who could only seek refuge on lion turtles, he remarked disdainfully, releasing additional energy blasts that rendered entire rows of our benders ineffective. Please fill the vacant positions promptly, commanded the spirit of knowledge. Other individuals from the reserve promptly moved to address the gaps, ensuring the continuity of the barrier's construction without the need for instruction. We anticipated that the situation would not be straightforward, and we had considered, if not all, then a significant number of potential scenarios. Incredible. Even the airbenders were impacted, and many of them were known to me from my teaching days. To prevent any further disruption, I swiftly approached him and secured my arms around the base of his body. This time, I lacked sufficient limbs to restrain all of his tentacles, resulting in some continuing to lash out indiscriminately, claiming the lives of benders. I needed to manage each new appendage, which placed a significant strain on my 4 streams of consciousness. Furthermore, Vadu acknowledged my presence. His body emitted new dark energy beams. My astral form appeared to dissolve, conveying intense discomfort to my physical body. I was unable to alleviate the discomfort with life energy, so I had to persevere and withstand it. The persistent exposure to negative energy has evidently diminished my resolve. Gradually, a series of troubling thoughts emerged, persuading me that change was unattainable. It seemed more prudent to negotiate with Vadu for the safety of myself and my family. The most challenging aspect was that these thoughts appeared to become progressively more logical. Has 35 seconds elapsed already? Or, have we already reached a point of no return? Persevere? A commanding female voice enveloped me, bringing clarity to my thoughts. Observing the battlefield, I noted significant changes. Rava's immense, ray-like form was positioned alongside Vadu, and nearly half of the benders had been substituted by spirits. Even my spouses and Tomoko stood among the airbenders. Countless lives irrevocably lost. I reflected somberly, finally assessing my unfortunate condition. My astral figure had diminished considerably, leading me to appear as though I were embracing merely one leg of the spirit embodying darkness and chaos. Significant fissures had developed across the surface of my body. It is probable that, without Rava's intervention in the conflict, my endurance would have been significantly compromised. "Father, I have faith in you," Tomoko exclaimed, briefly diverting her attention from her work. She likely recognized that I had ultimately gained clarity. "Chief Naruto, we stand with you," another voice unexpectedly called from the waterbenders. "Teacher Yo, let us expedite this process. Otherwise, you may find yourself without any students," a girl remarked, her smile appearing somewhat insincere. To the best of my recollection, a robust-looking gentleman, her prospective spouse, who was also one of my students from the initial cohort, had been positioned next to her earlier. I likely should not have underestimated their perceptiveness, I reflected. Ultimately, I do not possess the skills of a highly trained operative capable of seamlessly adjusting my conduct. It is probable that many individuals had already inferred this but chose to remain silent. My shoulders aligned, and a sense of confidence re-emerged in my gaze. Ah! Emitting a battle cry, I commenced to expand in size while concurrently mending my wounds. Kai. This represents the essential connecting force within the inner spirit. Up to this point, I have depended excessively on my sources, unintentionally leading myself to believe that I was significantly inferior to Vadu and, as a result, inherently less capable. It was fundamentally incorrect. Within each individual resides a steadfast essence capable of withstanding any external challenge. I will restrain him. Proceed immediately. The smaller Rava wrapped her tentacles around Vadu's body, rendering him immobile. Aura. Naturally, I felt the urge to express it vocally, yet a part of me held back due to embarrassment. With the adversary incapacitated, I commenced delivering rapid strikes with my fists. With each strike, dark energy emanated from the spirit's form, indicating that damage was indeed being inflicted. Absolutely not. I will not permit this. The game had concluded, and Vadu commenced to approach matters with a more serious demeanor. Regrettably for him, the timing was no longer in his favor. At that moment, Wan Shi Tong notified me that there were only 5 seconds left until the barrier was fully established. I had to begin expending my energy significantly. Vatu maintained the upper hand. I needed to balance their opportunities with Rava promptly. I actively sought innovative methods to enhance my personal development. Faced with limited options, I commenced the process of gathering as much Kai as possible. At one point, the damage escalated to nearly 10 times its original amount. However, the expense was significant. The source of the fire has been fully extinguished, along with one of my streams of consciousness. An increase in power. Subsequently, the earth and water sources converged with them. My primary focus was on defeating Vatu, regardless of any potential future recoveries. Leave that place immediately. A commanding voice resonated in my mind. The Great Owls. After executing a final, precise uppercut, I promptly exited the battle area. A profound weakness enveloped my body, and I was lifted from the confines of the barrier by another's hands. Can you close the barrier? Even though I felt weak, I managed to turn my body and see the amazing scene created by the combined efforts of the spirits and benders. A huge, round barrier made up of 4 colors started to surround the 2 strongest spirits in this world. Vatu's last curses echoed from the other side, his body securely held by Rava. Once the barrier was completely set up, some other amazing things started happening. The great spirits were all tangled up together, taking up the whole space and creating something like a 3-dimensional yin-yang symbol, showing how opposites can come together in harmony. I could have kept enjoying this view, but it seems the world had different ideas. It felt like whole pieces were starting to pull away from the spirit world. I caught a glimpse of one of Ba Sing Se's administrative buildings out of the corner of my eye. Looks like a whole bunch of benders ended up falling into it. All in all, this development was pretty uplifting, which means the world isn't going to leave us all in the dust here. Let's stick together. It would be great if every group had a bender for each element and at least one practitioner, right? I shouted quickly, tapping into my life energy. My energy body shot back with this intense pain. I pushed myself too hard that day, and it looks like recovery is going to take a while. Hey, Dad. We're here. It seems like as soon as they heard my voice, my whole family came running over to me. They all had injuries of different levels, but the best part? They were all alive. Before I knew it, I was in Dria's arms, with all my girls around me, their faces beaming with happiness. I couldn't even muster the strength to move a finger, yet I found myself lost in thought. I loved listening to my daughters chatting, noticing the worried looks on my wives' faces, and just taking in the fresh air around me. Being alive feels amazing. A year has passed. Ba Sing Se too. It's Memorial Day. People and society still hadn't completely bounced back from the disasters that happened a year ago. Some people found themselves waking up in the middle of the night, hearts racing. In their scary nightmares, it felt like the elements had finally taken over them. Scientists have figured out that the planet has grown by about 30%. New mountains and islands popped up, but at the same time, countless cities and thousands of villages disappeared from the earth. Take the Fire Nation's islands, for instance. They completely lost all their cultivated lands. So, there were these huge volcanic eruptions that covered the whole archipelago in lava, and it ended up creating one giant island that's about the size of Australia. Sadly, Tianhai City and a bunch of other coastal cities ended up underwater because of the rising water levels. The remaining settlements that weren't wiped out by natural disasters were also in pretty rough shape. As the earth moved, Ba Sing Se ended up splitting into 2 uneven sections. A part of the city ended up settling down 1,000 kilometers away from where it started. Shea was one of the lucky moms whose kids had made it back home safe and sound. Even though her son was 22 now, she just couldn't help but see him as her little boy forever. For a whole week on the flying island, she poured her heart into focusing her Kai, reaching out to every god and ancestor she could think of, pleading for her child's safe return. Maybe someone up there listened to her heartfelt prayers because she could once again hear her son's grumbling voice whenever she called him a bit too lovingly. The worst was behind her, but those memories still popped up from time to time. Just like a lot of folks, she was on edge, eagerly waiting for the changes that the authorities had promised. They showed up pretty quickly. From the little windows that the residents took turns checking out, you could see an apocalypse unfolding. Big buildings fell apart, huge holes popped up in the ground, and strong winds started to shake their island. Everyone was wide awake on the first night of the elemental chaos. As I glanced at their beds, it seemed like they were choosing to lie in their own graves. Sure enough, after a while, the nervous tension and physical exhaustion made them take a break. Her friends from other cities said she was lucky. Some of the smaller islands had been hit hard by huge tornadoes and hurricanes. Luckily, they had seen these outcomes coming, which helped them steer clear of the worst situations. The healers who were on standby took care of everything else. After a good breakfast, she and her moody son headed outside. She didn't push him with a bunch of questions, understanding that not all his friends were back yet. A huge crowd of people walked together toward Memorial Park, a new place where the names of all the brave heroes who gave their lives for a better future were carved into big stone slabs. The families who lost loved ones during the destruction of the spirit realm felt the deepest sorrow. After days of fighting, many benders and Kai blockers were feeling worn out and struggling to handle the latest disaster. Some people found themselves high up in the middle of the ocean, while the unluckiest ones ended up close to active volcanoes. If someone couldn't be found within the year, they were thought to be dead, and their names were etched in stone too. A few spirits were hanging around, their curiosity pulling them closer to the people. Most were in good spirits and ready for a chat. Not a lot of people were into that. Most spirits seemed to prefer hanging out in nature. On the flip side, some people got into spirits and decided to move into their communities. After the battle, a lot of people, maybe even everyone, started to treat spirits in a friendlier way. It hit home when I found out that the souls of those who passed away turned into new spirits. Sure, they may have lost their memories, but that didn't stop folks from feeling like a piece of their loved ones was still around. Every now and then, new lower spirits would show up in human cities, but honestly, it didn't happen very often at all. It turns out that human energy actually got in the way of spirits showing up. Every now and then, about once a month, you'd find dark spirits popping up in sewers and other similar spots. Typically, these unwanted visitors were quickly taken care of by passing benders. I mean, almost half the folks around had the skills to handle a weak lower spirit. Dealing with those dark spirits was a bit of a hassle, but since Vatu wasn't around, they seemed to have chilled out quite a bit. People were advised to steer clear of the red zones on the maps. Those spots where a lot of dark spirits were hanging out. Once the mayor wrapped up his serious speech, the crowd started to shuffle ahead. Some people wanted to touch the stone to discover their relative's name, while others lit candles to pay tribute to those who had fallen. The procession went on all day, and folks were still around until the moon showed up. As the sun set below the horizon, close to the gray celestial body, it looked like a second satellite popped into view. People had gotten used to watching the stunning, and in a way captivating, show of light and darkness battling it out in the night sky. Those who were in the know understood that when the spirit realm was destroyed, Vatu and Rava ended up stuck in a kind of isolated space, their presence overlapping with the world around them. A whole team kept an eye on this image using telescopes, making sure everyone would be informed right away if anything went awry. The floating island. Naruto wan Roku yo. Morning welcomed me with the usual view of half-naked beauties, some of them wrapping themselves around me. The huge, I'd go as far as to call it gigantic, bed could easily fit all my wives, but more often than not, I found myself dashing between their private rooms at night. It felt nice having everyone together in one place, and it was great that we didn't have little arguments every day. Without their arguments, the house would have felt way too quiet. We didn't have to hide or keep our relationships under wraps anymore. People got that I could somehow be 4 different people at once. If it weren't for the battle with Vatu, I probably would have faced some negative changes in my life. Thanks to what I've done in the past as a leader of different nations, I built up a lot of trust. Plus, every choice I've made has just been about helping humanity move forward. The power I showed during the fight against the spirit of darkness and chaos was definitely a big deal. So, it feels like my persona has become almost untouchable for a lot of people, kind of like when the Avatar was at the height of their popularity, seen as chosen and even a bit divine. I didn't fight against this situation. I think I've earned some bonuses for all the hard work I've put in over the years. I didn't want to get out of that cozy bed. At last, I can finally get some proper rest. It's been a wild ride this past year. Along with getting involved in the hunt for benders and conquerors all over the globe, I needed to work on reclaiming my other bodies as fast as I could. I felt fortunate that they could be recovered. I honestly thought I had lost everything for good. It felt like problems were just stacking up, one after the other. Before long, the food supplies on the flying islands started to dwindle, but sadly, there were only a handful of settlements where any reserves might still be found. Also, a huge amount of farmland has been wiped out by nature, creating a serious need for food. We missed the benders. After they beat Vadu, everyone got spread out, so it took a while for them to make their way back home. I finally decided to shake off the self-pity and carefully got out of bed. I made myself a nice cup of fragrant herbal tea and headed up to the rooftop, where I found a cozy little spot waiting for me. The air felt so fresh, and there was this gorgeous rainbow just peeking out from behind the clouds, giving a little nod to the rain that had just passed through. It's pretty amazing that in this world, the rainbow hasn't been taken over by any one group yet. The view was still absolutely stunning, with islands of all shapes just hanging in the air, strange frozen rocks, and vibrant greenery all around. One obvious upside to the worlds coming together was that it felt like the whole planet had turned into the land of the blue people. Pandora. That was a clever pun. Avatar moved to Avatar. Before long, the peaceful chirping of birds was suddenly cut off by the booming roar of a flying bison. Aang and his eldest daughter, Jinora, were perched on the back of the once rare creature. I had already noticed that the world enjoys casting different characters, so I wasn't too shocked when the adult Jinora turned into her version from the Korra animated series. I'm convinced that his youngest is going to turn out just like Ikki. Uncle Roku Wan Yo Naruto. The lovely girl with chestnut hair and an arrow on her forehead greeted us with a bright smile. Jinora was like a little whirlwind. Wherever she went, things just seemed to get turned upside down right away. Tattooed one. I waved and used a bit of airbending to pull the squealing Jinora closer to me. With all the teasing she throws my way, I thought her perfectly styled hair could use a little payback. Wow, every time we come here, your island just keeps getting more beautiful, Aang said, glancing around while tuning out his daughter's call for help. Okay. Go ahead and join the girls, I said, letting Jinora go. She stuck her tongue out at me and quickly went down. Looks like she's picked up on your ways, I chuckled, unintentionally bringing back memories for Aang of his younger days when he would tease his mentors more than a few times. Even though Aang was in a good mood, you could tell there was something on his mind. I had a good sense of what was bothering him since I was close to him. With Rava gone, Aang's Kai just couldn't handle the strength of the four elements anymore. It was gradually and surely taking a toll on him. So, along with Wan Shi Tong, we were able to slow things down a bit, giving him an extra 5 to 7 years. I could take those elements out, but honestly, I feel like that might just make things worse. No need to stress, Aang. Let's figure out how to tackle your issue together. You know, even if things don't go as planned, I won't have any regrets. If it weren't for our healers, I'd probably be rocking the look of an old gray-haired guy. I've already lived my life. I just ask that you look after my family in the future, he said gently at first, but by the end, he was being himself. It's obvious he put some thought into it and came to his decision. You didn't even have to mention it. Your family is safe with the Emperor of Humanity watching over them. I said the last 2 words with a clear sense of self-mockery. The members of my fan club gave me that title. So, they ended up being one of the big reasons I decided to move to a separate island. I heard they're thinking about writing a book on you and they're not shy about reaching out to Wan Shi Tong to dig into your past. Feel free to head over to the others. I'll catch up with you in a bit. I just couldn't let them get to the spirit of knowledge. He would spill the beans about all the stuff that's been bothering me. The end. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. I'm thrilled you watched the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe for even more exciting content coming your way soon.